Hello and welcome to an open source live code hangout. Today we'll be working on the Jerry Life project. I've got a task here. We're going to add a modal dialog that will let us add activities to a home. We'll run the server. We'll load it locally. We may use ChatGPT to help with certain code conundrums. Right now, if I log in, I may not have created a superuser. Common password. Now that I'm logged in, if I open the navigation menu, we'll see two buttons up here. These allow us to record data that will be visualized in our homes reports, such as in these charts. We have wellness activities, things that add meaning and fulfillment to life, like going outdoors or listening to music, participating in discussions or cultural events. And we also have some metrics to record the types of work that the staff are doing, such as dispensing medication, preparing meals, cleaning, various tasks. And we want to make sure that the residents in these care homes are receiving high quality of care, that they're living fulfilling lives, and that the caregivers who are employed by the care homes, could be institutions or smaller homes, that the employees aren't overwhelmed and that they're doing work within their specialty, that nurses are doing work that's particular to nurses. And this is developed in a response to some observations in care homes here in Finland, in particular that sometimes the residents weren't leading as fulfilling of lives as they could have. Some residents were more popular than others. There was a disparity in the opportunity to participate in activities. It wasn't intentional. It was more or less accidental because there wasn't a way of making it visible. So we developed this tool to help with that. And then we've also noticed there have been issues in the past few years, in particular with worker dissatisfaction. There have been strikes and a few things that helped us recognize that there's the importance of staff doing work that's appropriate and not being overburdened. On the flip side, there's legislation that says, that kind of guarantees that the residents in these homes get to participate in cultural activities, for example, and we want to make sure that we're living up to that legal requirement as well as the expectation from the family and the residents. So yeah, this is the purpose of this Jerry Life tool. And of course, it can be deployed anywhere. It can be used in any country, but we're particularly modeling it after the Finnish caregiving model. So in order to move this, to record work, we have a modal dialog here. And it just lets you pick the home, and same thing with resident activities. There's a form. Now the work form, it appears in a modal dialog, and you have to select the home, the work type, caregiver role, etc. And there's a little bit of a bug here. We shouldn't be displaying both of these. That could lead to inconsistency. I think one of these is a derived field. I'll have to fix that. Well, let's put an issue on GitHub while it's fresh. So I'll take a quick screenshot. As far as I understand, this tool should record the metrics in one unit, a time unit of minutes or hours, and then we can derive other units, hours, days, weeks, from the initial unit, but we shouldn't collect it in 2 units. So there's some confusion. I don't know how that got added. I'll have to fix it. But basically, so this is the one we want, and I'll annotate it real quick just so it's visible, so it's obvious. Annotation. So we have like a rectangle here. That should be good. And if I click the rectangle, and I draw it around this, let's see what happens. Yeah, that's about it. Good. Okay. Now we'll copy this into a GitHub issue. Now I've been using ChatGPT to help me with creating a GitHub issue. So if I just kind of say, and this is interesting too. This I should actually add to the project, an issue template, so that when I open a new issue, we have it already in place. So let's do this. Let's add GitHub issue templates. Let me just make sure I don't lose my image here. I'll just keep that in the background for a moment. Well, the feature request template, and as far as I recall, we can use forms syntax. Wow. Let's see if GPT knows about the GitHub template syntax. It's YAML. That'll save a bit of time. I think we should create a bug report and feature request. Nice. So it's got a markdown field saying, thanks. It's got an input, placeholder required fields. Wow, this is good stuff. Motivation, interesting. So we'll go to the GitHub issue template directory, which doesn't yet exist, and then we will create a feature request a.yaml. We should be able to do the whole thing, I think. We'll create a bug report one. The issue was a bit vague. They're all issues, but then if we say features, which are enhancements, bug reports, which are bugs, then we get them already sorted into appropriate buckets. And so starting here with markdown, which is, I was kind of expecting that, because the default is you just pop some markdown into the text area and people will sort of follow it, but it's not always a guarantee. That's why then we use this issue form issue template. And I'm not sure if this exists, but if we can do a select menu for the operating system choice, and it's not somewhat relative, but it could be useful just as an experiment to see if it would work. And then what we can do is link in our project to the feature request template with a button, the bug report template with a button, and then the discussion template. Yeah, it has drop-down support. Wow. Yeah, and we could just capture the high level OS details. It could become useful. It might also be useful to ask in the browser. So I'll add that. This is very cool. Well, I don't want these to become too much of a barrier to submitting issues. And these aren't always relevant. Some of the bugs could manifest at a lower level of details, but then the web browser. In any case, what do we have? We have, I'm trying to think alphabetically, but Safari, Mozilla Firefox, Chrome, Edge, Chrome, Edge, there we go, and other, not applicable. Hey, that's a good choice. Leave the not applicable part. All right, we'll give it a try. This is a good first draft. Thanks. Now, how do I think? So yeah, see if it knows a little bit about the GitHub configuration. All right, so we'll commit these. It's exciting. Yeah, we'll check our contributing. That's good suggestion. So it's very thorough. It's giving me more advice than I asked for, but it's helping me think about details I would have overlooked otherwise. So do we even have a contributing? That's a good thing. So I'm going to paste in the context window is getting larger, so you can kind of paste in whole documents now. You can ask, and I've done this in the past, GPT to role play as different roles like senior software engineer or open source contributor or new contributor, and then say, as a new contributor, what would you expect to see, or what would be helpful for us to include in a contributor? Okay, so it's saying take the existing document and first just say, how do you contribute issues and bug reports and suggestions? That's the easiest way in, like if you imagine a curve of gradually getting further into the project where coding is one of the more honestly difficult areas, and we want to encourage people to contribute in many ways beyond coding. So yeah, this is a helpful on-ramp. So welcome all kinds of contributions. So basically, reporting bugs, feature requests. Honestly, the feature requests are probably more important. I think ideas at this point are more important. But it's all good. Well, let's move the feature requests. Let's see. The community discussions is the first place. I want to promote that one. So let's bring that up here. Then feature requests, which are excellent. This happens to be alphabetized now. Okay, now development. It's a more complicated thing. You got to be familiar with Python, virtual environments, Probably Django, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, depending on the type of task you're doing. All right, so let's insert a table of contents, code of conduct. We don't have one of those, but table of contents right there. Help people navigate a bit. So that was a good suggestion to include details in our contributing guide in our README. And let me just double check our README. Oh, our README is super long now, but nonetheless, let's commit this. It's not picking it up. There we go. Or actually, check this out. Magic button. Oh, pretty good. Synchronize those. Now we have a pull request. Oops. Yes. And so we will need to, once I merge this, go to repository settings, scroll down features, make sure the issues checkbox is there, which it is. Issue templates. Yeah, it says GitHub does not currently support custom buttons for redirecting users to discussions from the issue creation page. Users will need to manually select the discussions tab to start a discussion. I think I've seen evidence to the contrary here, but I haven't. We'll have to double check. So it looks like our PR is okay. Some style thing there, but let's merge that. Yeah. So let me check real quick off stream, just to make sure there's no sensitive stuff. If not, then I'll just show this how GitHub works. From people who should be fairly, maybe aren't always familiar with it. I don't know. So let's see. Okay, so here it is. We got the, on the settings page, we got the feature request first, bug report, and let's just take a look. Custom a blank template for other issue types. What does this do? Now, if this is going to be like Markdown or some kind of text, it looks like it's going to have me open a pull request. I believe there will be a way I can add at least like a link to our discussions page on this. Let's see what it says when I propose changes. I'm going to create a new branch and start a pull request and see what file it opens. What does it do? Changing 2 files. All right, so we've got didn't work how I was hoping. Strange. Okay, let me see if there's GitHub docs about this. It could be that I named them YAML instead of YAML. But hey, it's working. It's actually rendering the form. All right, now our CI is running again. We'll go to the settings. All right, so I'll have to refer to the documentation. You can define different input types, validations, and such and such. About issue and pull request templates, configuring issue templates for your repository, syntax for the issue forms. On GitHub, you do the main page and you go to settings, use add template menu to preview your thing, do that. When you're finished editing, preview your template, click on propose changes, click commit changes, creating issue forms. Are currently in beta and subject to change. You can create issue templates that have customizable web fields. To use an issue form in your repository, you must create a new file and add it to the .github issue template folder in your repository. Here's an example of an issue configuration. Here's the rendered version. Choose a repository where you want to create the issue form. In your repository, create a file called GitHub issue. In the body, do your thing, commit. Configuring the template chooser. You can now, yes, define a config py, and you can have links in there. Super cool. GitHub, whoops, issue template, just make sure I spelled it correctly. And we got a couple of YAML files in there. Here's an example config file. It'll customize the template chooser when the file is merged into the repository's default branch. It's almost good enough, but the confusing part is, how do I specify an issue template for one of these links? Adding config YAML under GitHub issue template is a great way to guide the contributors to the correct resources for their specific needs, such as feature requests, bug reports, and community discussions. The config YAML file you're planning to add will help direct contributors to the appropriate channels. So you have some metadata here, templates, bug report YAML. Hey, there we go. So config.yaml. Alright, so hopefully we don't have to specify the labels that are already part of the template. Just feature request.yaml. All of that should be part of this template. I mean, it is. Bug reports, report.yaml, and then our community link, and I need to fix the URLs still. Maybe we'll start with the community link, and I think I need this whole thing. Yeah, looks good. Now this is subject to change. I need to stage those changes. I'm going to commit it to the main branch and just push that up there. Not a best practice, but I just don't want to open another pull request for that one. Okay, so now we have an issue template configuration. I guess if I go to new issue, somehow okay, so it automatically picked those up and it's kind of merged the two. Well, that's okay. So I guess if I just delete these configurations here and leave the community support one, hopefully that'll work its way out. And these are fine. Get started. Oh yeah, and plus these open a new tab looking thing. It's kind of awkward. Okay. Well, it's progress. That's what it is. I like it. So now it helps me have some structure in my feature requests and error reports, and helps new contributors to know what kind of information we need when we're submitting a bug report or feature request. And one thing I'm curious, yeah, it gives us the rich text field. Very good. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. This was a bit of an aside. I'll create the, I guess it was a bug report. Yeah, for the form, the modal dialog, and then we'll continue with the task at hand of creating a different modal dialog for recording activities. I'll be right back. Okay, good to go. So that was actually kind of fun and interesting, learning more about open source and how these platforms work. So now we're going to create a bug. And this is strange. Title field's a bit redundant. Let's fix that. It just takes a moment. And let me check the feature request. It's probably the same problem. It's got a default title, but then, okay. It just doesn't need the additional title. Can we put the bug emoji? That's the one. Is emoji the plural of emoji? Okay, I'm out of ectoplasm today. I've got my orange power issue, new issue, and I believe this is a bug report. work. What was it? I had the annotation wrong. Dang it. Duration minutes, duration hours. Log in. And these can be optional, I guess. The default if not applicable. Let's see how it looks. Now I wish it would not populate the fields where there was no response, but okay. No response is sort of like not applicable. Alright, but there it goes. Nonetheless, we've created a bug report template and an initial bug report. On to the task at hand. 45 minutes later. Let's make sure I've got everything here. We will create a new branch. I believe the modal is the right solution, and there's a couple of opportunities here. The minimum viable is to wrap this form in a modal dialog with the residence field. I guess this is, yeah, they would be filtered to the home level. There's potentially a lot of residents. One improvement for this form would be to group the residents by home. So these should all be residencies, and then we would have a grouping. It's a bit complicated, but that's more useful, I think, to the end user. So I have done some research on this. Let me take a look real quick at some shoelace components, web components. I'm trying to keep this project very simple, maintainable, forward-thinking in terms of longevity, which might mean not adopting all of the most exciting technologies that are going around right now in the JavaScript space in particular, because that'll lead us to a more brittle project that'll sort of disintegrate every couple of months, it feels like. So I'm not using any heavy front-end framework, and I'm trying to invest in web standards because that's created with longevity in mind. The Shoelace framework is one of the few true web component frameworks that I'm aware of. Now, what I'm looking for here, do they have a form component for choosing? If not, that's cool. I mean, this is pretty nice, and it selects supports multi-select perhaps. Okay, so they call it option. Perhaps the option select supports multi-select. Okay, so DL select. Grouping and multi-select is what I'm after. Placeholders, clearable. This is looking good. Grouping, they have option group, web standards compliant component framework, which is one of the reasons we use Bootstrap. It uses Sass for defining and compiling the styles, but it's basically just CSS. We just want very simple project, simple aesthetics and semantics, and a project for these components such as Bootstrap that's been around for a while and is under continual improvement. Now, one problem with Shoelace style I've seen in the past is I believe it suffers from this single developer syndrome, which is kind of one strike against projects when I'm evaluating them. You can see here it's just primarily Korleviska. Fairly prolific, but also the contributing graph is a bit tapering. Granted, it's a web standard component library, so the code will, I believe it. We'll give it a try, and the first thing I'll do is just try to improve this form, which may be sufficient for the minimum viable. I would like to install it from a CDN so that I don't have to introduce any build tooling. So we'll go to the main website. I'm just very minimal with this project. I'm very hesitant to add complex build tooling, to touch much in the JavaScript ecosystem. I like the language, and I like the fact that JavaScript is a web standard, but the ecosystem, I believe, is just really dysfunctional. I've lost trust. So yeah, it has a light and a dark theme. We're going to have a toggle between light and dark. So I should take that into account. So let's actually create a different branch, and I'm not going to create an issue for this. but I will create branch to enhance. Now we're not supporting light and dark theme toggling. So actually this is good to keep in mind, but I'll use the default dark theme. I'll copy this code into our main template. Core? No. Common? Template? I don't even have anything in here, I think. I should delete that. Okay, so in this project we just have them here. So our base HTML will load the style sheet. And the script at the bottom. One problem I'm going to encounter is this is auto-generated. Alright, so we've got the basic dependency loaded in. We'll go to the activities, templates, the form here. I might make an argument later that lets us pass in the resident options or something like that. But for now, we're just going to reconstruct this and make sure it's localized. So for this, I'm going to ask ChatGPT for a little bit of help to prompt my memory. I have a little bit of duplication here, but essentially see if it gets some help, if it zeroes straight into the template code, or if it's going to encourage me to do it in Python, form helper. That could be good right here, just to add the class. Yeah, so it's proposing a few ways. Now I don't want to, I need to put the class directly on the form field. So we'll manually render in the template. That's what I was thinking. Now we've got two forms that are roughly doing this duplicate of one another. I think this is the one I should be maintaining. I can tell by the fact that it uses a save button, and that it's called resident activity form, which is a bit different. So this is just a remnant that I had forgotten to delete. Alright, so let's see if we can just, I don't remember if I mentioned, yeah, a bit about the markup and the translation in particular. So we'll see how close this gets us. If I can just refresh. Alright. So that works. So this is also one problem I've had with the shoelace templates, is they just do weird things in the DOM with the shoelace components. So let me just first see if this works with the other fields. Okay, so that's one problem. Looks like it almost works. But I'm wondering if the CSS is not loading here. And since it is, I don't know why this has got a transparent background. Because of that. Yep. Alright, well this won't work. This is the second time I've tried it in a different project. I tried it before and got some just weirdness. Just like this. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just kind of doesn't work correctly. Let me make sure I've installed installed it correctly. And maybe I should include it at the top of my base template, but honestly, it doesn't sound like the good idea. Nope, still the same problem. What if I include it up top? Then we wouldn't have that flash of unstyled content. Now it says I can include it after though, after the CSS. But I don't have any other scripts here, and even Bootstrap is like fairly chill without any scripts up top here. Still have that flash of unstyled content while the thing loads. Shoot. Alright, back to the drawing board. So again, I'm going to try using CDN to install Shoelace. I don't want to install it with a boot build tool. It rendered it. It was just buggy. Okay, so there's the form back. Maybe I'm not using the correct select semantics because it's a multi-select, but that's how it looks. So. Alright, so then there was this thing called select 2, which has jQuery dependency. Is there a select 3? Looking for a library similar to select 2 but without jQuery. I mean, I'm not opposed to jQuery. I just don't want to add unnecessary dependencies. Now, granted, I just went ahead and added a big shoelace thing, but I thought we were going to get some components out of it. And jQuery would give us some things as well, but most of those, I believe we can pretty much do with Bootstrap, nice select, with regular JavaScript. Okay, wait, first thing, okay, 2 years ago, so that's already done. Let's try select multiple choices, vanilla.js. I knew there had to be something. 2 years ago. Well, it's vanilla.js. Let's see what else. 5 months ago, modern looking select field for form submits which can be customized. Does not need jQuery. I don't know why I would need Bootstrap, but okay. What's the license? MIT. What does it look like? Lemon squeezy. You have to do it one at a time though. Not a single select. With group tag, it's a bit much. I don't think we're gonna go with something like that. All right. A lot of stars. I don't want to install Vue or React to get just a select widget. November 20th, 2020. Agnostic. Autocomplete widget with native. I guess autocomplete is what we're after. Keyboard feeling. Just JavaScript. Check the insights. Contributor. Now it's a widget, so I don't have high expectations. If it was like a framework, like web development framework, Django, for example, yes, I would want multiple contributors. So it looks like this project had a handover from one contributor or one maintainer to another one. And then a lot of kind of one-time contributors, which is cool and it's common. So we have the group. If I hold shift, I can select multiple. Without holding shift, I'm able to select multiple. We can remove. Looks good. It's installable via CDN. Lightweight, 16 kilobytes, less than a common JPEG image. And it just uses a select UI control, which is one of the problems web components face is you can't override, or it's difficult to override the default browser widgets like form controls and buttons. So I don't know that the web APIs with web components I don't think they included that ability. So you can define custom components and new components with a shadow DOM and all that stuff, but really just styling the default ones I think was still left as prohibitively difficult. But here we go. So it's got an ID and then the style sheet after and this is okay, but all right. And then you have basically Tom selected. I think that's going to be probably the best bet for now. And then one thing I'd like to do is group them by home. So you have a bunch of select options, but inside of groups, define the choices with groups. Firstly, define your choices in a way that they are grouped. Each group is a tuple, where the first element is the name of the group, and the second element is a list of tuples representing the choices in that group. So kind of key value. Excuse me. So this is cool. We could start with just that in our view. There's an activity list view. There's an activity form view. Now I would need to pass the resident list into the form view. So there may be like a get form context or something like this. I don't have that great of knowledge into the Django framework internals, but a lot of that knowledge is latent within the GPT-4 because the Django is very well documented, also very widely used. So there's a lot of training material. So if I can get inside of a function where I have access to the database, I can generate the grouped list. I just want to know that I can connect the dots, and where do I generate the list? Probably like a get context, get form data. Modify your form to accept the resident choices as an argument. So it's on. Okay, all right. When you initialize it, you just grab choices. Then override the form. So basically I'll read this aloud. It's like, step 1, modify your form to accept resident choices as an argument. First, modify your resident activity form to accept resident choices as an initialization argument. And this modification resident choices is an optional keyword keyword argument that's not provided. It'll default to an empty list. All right, so we're gonna get the value out of the quargs. Oh, cool, I can reply to specific lines. All right, then when we're setting up the get quargs, we will generate this list. Okay, there we go. There we go. Resident choices. Very cool. So what we'll do then is a little bit of debugging, but we'll copy this in a moment. I'm just going to get into the context. Get form quargs. Override the get form quargs method to add the residence to the form. Interesting. Okay, now here's the deal though. I'm going to see if GPT in the form of Copilot can help us out. And just feeding it more context. Now the key is that we have a residency object that links residents to homes. So we first need to fetch Alright, so with this context in mind, let's see what we can get. Resident choices starts with an empty list. Homes, residency object filter, move out is null, values list, home name, flat is true, distinct homes. Okay, then we're gonna, I guess, iterate over those homes and get the residencies for them. Yeah, it seems a bit redundant that I'm querying this multiple times. And this is going to create a lot of queries, rather than a single unified query. So let's give it a little more information about the residency model. As few queries as possible. It's essentially an aggregation. And here we are with our models. We have residents who are linked to homes by a residency relationship. So if I just provide this model here, that should be sufficient. And let's see if it picks up on the fact that full name is a property method. It's not actually stored in the database, and we would want the full name. To optimize the query for retrieving residency objects grouped by home and then accessing home name and resident full name, so it did catch that it was a method. Assuming full name is a method, yeah, the resident model. You should utilize Django's database optimization tools like select related and prefetch related. Yes, okay, very cool. These tools help in reducing the number of database queries by fetching related objects in advance. Step 1 is optimize the query. So we're going to write a function too, which is good from a testing standpoint. So we're going to get the resident choices by filtering the residency objects where the move out is null. And we will select the related home and residency. So we have those fields available. So that's a single database query, and it'll fetch everybody, including the homes. Then we are going to iterate over those, but we won't have to do a database query for each one. So this is looking good. And I believe this can be a private method for the time being. So we'll define it up here before the view. It's basically an aggregation. Then our get form quargs is very clear, and I'm not having to do all the heavy work at that level of abstraction. We've encapsulated it because we're just focusing on the quargs. I don't need to know about the structure of the collections and prefetch related and all that stuff. Alright, so now we have a method function to use, and I believe the init should come first and it'll get called in whatever order. Let's see. I'm wondering if I would just, so we don't need to do any popping, or if it's just more direct, right? Yes, you can certainly call your resident choices function directly in the init method of your resident activities. This approach simplifies the process and avoids the need to use getForm quargs and pop any arguments. So you can just get rid of that, and the initializer here is a bit better as well. It's like the Copilot is using almost ChatGPT 3.5. I'm not sure what the version is, but you know, there's some definitely qualitative differences. Let's just see what happens. Type object must not. All right, maybe I spoke too soon. Let me double check. Or if I just say super init string is not callable. Use line 24. Maybe because it's treating it as a property. All right. So the self refers to the view. Oh. That's why I'm in the wrong place. Okay. All right. I have to add this to the form. Makes sense. I'm adding to the view. My bad. I'll take a quick break and be right back. Excellent. All right, so we'll move our helper function and the initialization to the form. Cool. Which was under the metrics app forms. And we might put an order by there. But first, let's just get this into the UI. Cool. Residency is not defined. So we're no longer querying by residence explicitly. We are querying by residency. There we go. Home no, home 0, home 1. Very good. And I can't select the home, of course, just the residence. Yeah, so it works. The default browser multi-select widget leaves a lot to be desired. At least I could change the height of it, but yeah, it's not very great user experience. We're making progress though. One thing is the residents aren't alphabetical, so that might be a bit trickier. Might be asking too much, but we should really should be alphabetized by home and residency. So yeah, this is wow. That works great. alphabetize, just as a way. To alphabetize, yeah, with dictionary sort. Okay. Resident choices list by both home name and a resident name. You can sort the dictionary entries. Okay, we can sort the top level, which is the sorted. Yeah, and they're not named tuples, so we have to use the index there. All right, that works though. A bit unfortunate because of the relational nature of our data. It's difficult to sort these. String's not callable. Yeah. So it's a property, the full name property. It was still a bit confused by the fact that I told it was a method earlier. It was just doing what I had told it earlier. Man, it worked. Very cool. That's already a really big improvement. Wow. I really can't ask for much more. This has already been a big help. But I'm going to try. We want to make this as easy for people as possible. And it can be helpful if we have like a multi-select widget that even lets you type a few letters, filter the name that you're looking for. I believe this one even had type ahead. Type. What? Yeah, see? And it shows the title. So this is good for 16K. Selectize.js with 4 main objectives: modernizing the code base, decoupling from jQuery, expanding functionality, and addressing issue backlogs. I can get on board with that. So, usage. It's got a style sheet and a script. I'm gonna just put them together in the base template. This is gonna get me back to the question of how to add the class, but I believe you just do that. That's pretty cool. With the ID though, that's kind of strange. Oh, no, it's this. Yeah, you just kind of find the element. So I can find the element by name or whatever it is using a CSS selector here. Whew, this is gonna work, I think. The template. So our base HTML. Let's check our indentation here. I'll try to, I actually just would like to try loading this at the bottom. The first script loading. And you can use the defer keyword even to make it better. So we're allowing our JavaScript to run first. And I wonder if I put defer here. Is that how you do it? Well, I'm not going to worry about that until we look at our Lighthouse score. But essentially now on the page, I need to add a little bit of extra JS. So we can come down here on the activity template. That one I'm going to delete. Block extra JS. And we have to wrap it in the script tag. Our extra JS doesn't include that. And I'll have to get the DOM element by rendering the page, which it already is, and I can just inspect it. Which it is. Name is residence. ID equals ID residence, I think. So it's CSS selector ID residence. Hashtag. let's try it. All right, so let's do a console log just to see. Hello there. Hello, nurse. Now I'm not really like waiting for a document to be ready or any of that stuff. Time slug is not defined. Okay. Well, actually, I just realized. I should only really be including it where it's used, essentially. Likewise, we have this extra CSS block for this purpose. So I'll just put that here. And then in here, we'll paste that. Now, first we'll check hello is working. Oh, and it worked. Nice. Man, really good. Now, one last thing. Dark mode support. I'm not super set on dark mode. I like to provide it, and especially when I'm working on the code, I like to have a dark screen because it's like a big flashlight right here in my face. And I've already got lights, and there's enough light coming at me right now. So no dark mode. Alright, no worries. It's a TS wrapper and TS drop down. So what I'll do, let's create some custom styles. Hopefully I don't have to do important. That works. I don't have to do important though. I'm loading in the correct order. Important shouldn't be required. Yeah. Now the actual color I want essentially matches. I think it should basically match this. This is good. But I can't really get that color without an eyedropper. More tools. Oh, it's just the gear. Chromium eye drops. Color picker, basically. F12, go to the Elements tab. Under Styles. Side. Click on any color preview box. Huh. You have to go all the way in there just to get that color picker. Alright. Well, this one's pretty close. So what's that? Alright, so we're pretty close. Opt group header. Interesting. So it's slightly dark gray. That's cool. Copilot figured that out. It didn't quite work. Alright, so I have to say TS dropdown. I have to be more specific. Basically, it's looking for specificity, and mine wasn't specific enough. So the more specific rule takes the game, takes the cake. TS dropdown. Space on. Now we have matching specificity, but I have the cascade. I guess this is the right word. It's the one that comes next. It's not just like cascading inwards, but like it's loaded the previous styles, and then now it applies my rules. So it's the ordering. I have the last word, and it's just as specific as the other words that have been spoken. Man, I have to arrange so many of these. Option active. So again, TS dropdown. I'll organize. So then it knows that this should match. Wow, it's crazy there. Crazy there. There we go. Okay, I'm getting close. So it's essentially TS and here I'll just try applying a background color. Oh man. So we will want that. Yeah, this is cool. Maybe I'll indent it just slightly. Wait, yeah, the last thing. TS control item. Didn't get it. Almost spect. So TS control item input. No, that's the next thing. This is the item. Specificity again. TS wrapper. TS control. Okay. Man, CSS is incredibly complex and all these rules. Yeah. They need to be calculated. But hey, it looks good. Wow. Made it. It stands out a bit. One thing is this, I don't know how much I want to fiddle with it, but the outline here. So I can remove that. Where's the outline coming from? Not the TS wrapper, but probably the TS control. Border none. So here we can just say TS control, border none. And essentially, I'd like it to resemble this. So I think I'll invert the colors because we sort of need to indicate multiple selections, I think, right? Or at least get them an outline. Could be that. But what if I do... No. I have to refresh. Huh. How did I do that? can't I select this? It's like the browser. Well, I'm not gonna fight it. I don't care that much. Strange, why is this element the last active? And what's the point of making it active also? Is it so I can remove it? A lot of subtlety here. Alright, let me see if this is documented. Tom select. Let's see if that worked. Just a bit of an aside, but that's pretty cool. No, it didn't work. It did work. It was on the wrong side. So the 0 and 8 picks. Does Max even work with that? Should work with that. Okay. Yes, this is have to be integers. Maybe I can fix that. I'll open a pull request for that. Holy mackerel. What did I just copy? Just this one, right? No, it didn't work. Oh, man. Clear button. I might have to use important here. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to fiddle with this too much, but that should just be enabled by default. The clear, like select 2, it just was enabled by default. Okay, remove button, will that work? Yeah, that's... How about remove button? Yes, looks better. Okay, can't clear it fully, but at least we can remove them. Good. Progress. So we have a multi-select form. Does it work? Does it work? Let's create a record on the 4th. Yeah. For those residents, they had a guided group activity for 30 minutes, and there was a hobby instructor that stopped by and led a yoga workshop, something like that. Saving it, 30. And what it does is creates a record for each of the residents. And they should have a corresponding activity ID or group activity ID that shows it was a group activity and that these were participating in that. But anyway, we split it out into individual activity records. And Mary G, I don't know what home they're at. And Nicholas L. Was it Nicholas L? I don't remember dang names. Mary G and Alexander W. Not Nicholas. They had activities today, so there it goes. It worked. I'm going to take a quick peek at what the other plugins are doing, but I don't want to get too deep into it. Caret position. Okay. Checkbox options. Well, hey, that's kind of cool. Maybe it's a little easier to use. Although, I should say it was fairly easy to use as it was. There we go. Let's take a look. Add activity, and that should be refreshed. Now we have checkboxes. Yeah, maybe it's just more explicit that way, that you can select the residents but not the homes. Okay, I can go with that. Nice improvement. Nice one. Clear button didn't work. I'm not sure why. I'm not going to debug it. Drag and drop. Interesting. Drop down header. What's this? Oh, I see. Then you select residents. Hey, that could be kind of cool. So then I would add a dictionary entry for this one. See if it uses a mixed dictionary approach. No, it broke. It broke. So I guess if I want to configure it like that, the whole plugins thing will have to be a dictionary. That won't work. But let's just pull those out for a minute. Then basically, actually, all I need to do is let me test this out. Well, first, interesting that it knows about those. Now, granted, I'm guessing or using hallucinations of the large language model, but that worked. And now I can localize it. Cool. Since we're in a template, I can. Let's see. Yeah, the template, we just do that, don't we? Maybe if I use an empty dictionary, it's just. Come on. Alright. So you have to have an option in there. So it was working a moment ago. That won't work because those are not dictionaries. This should work. That works. Let's see if it's a matter of translating one step at a time. Okay, so that's what doesn't work. This is why it doesn't work, because it's trying to use JavaScript, but we're actually technically in a Django template. Don't need that. Alright, so we just go back to that, where it was working with the remove button and the checkbox options, and I won't worry about the headings and translations right now. And it's already got a title, basically. Alright. Header, drop down input. What does this do? People know they can actually search. Nice. No, nothing like that. That was a weird one. You had to know active items. What's the point of that? I don't know. There's something that you can do. Some kind of actions you can do on active items. Alright, that's a little bit better. So I'm glad that's a configuration variable. I wonder if it's obvious though, without this drop down input, you can actually, in JavaScript the comments are different. You can search here, so this is kind of interesting. I like this better than the drop down input. No backspace delete. So this is interesting. If I hit that, then you can delete. I think since we have the delete button, maybe we can disable the backspace delete. I don't know. I'll try to make it accessible so people can navigate with a keyboard. That's interesting. I don't think I want to use that. Oh, cool. So if we want to query them from the server, that's a handy plugin. Oh, okay, I think we're finally good to go. And really, the change is fairly minimal. Just took some tweaking and trial and error and styling, but overall it's pretty good. Let me just take one quick look at these and see if I can organize them a little bit better. So at least alphabetical might help me. Wrapper select and specificity. TS wrapper select multiple. Pungent TS drop downs. I'll move those up. I like it. Glad there's an option out there. It seems like it's pretty nice actually. We're not spoiled for choice in here. If I were using React or something like that, I know there's some really great, or Vue, there's some really great component libraries for those, front-end libraries. But man, it seems it's like unfortunate you have to go all in on a front-end, template rendering system. Just use some components. Maybe there's a way to use them without these component libraries with Vue, but let's see. I don't want to go too much further into this, but Vanilla.js libraries, Riot.js, Pure.js, JavaScript template engine. Yeah, I didn't really do a search for a whole UI framework. They have some plain JavaScript stuff. Simple and elegant component-based UI library. Version 9. Front end's crowded. Riot.js offers the right balance. Here's what we need: custom elements, human readable. Yeah, I like XML, HTML. Close to standards. That's what I'm talking about. Web components like API. No polyfills. No proprietary event system. React. HTML root elements. That was what got Shoelace, I think. That's maybe why Shoelace was breaking. Create them with Rust even. Any preprocessor, but do I need to use a preprocessor? Wow. And they're comparing it with these other, this is not apples to apples, right? It's a component library. These are like, I would hesitate to even call them sometimes a framework, but these are reactive data binding or DOM manipulation libraries. Maybe that's what it means. It's you still have to define them. Okay, so it's not a component library. It's a UI library. That's what they're saying. Literally. If I were to define my own, but I would like a component library. Okay, I'm about to navigate away from this. I'll give it one more shot. Demo kitchen sink. No, I can already tell. I don't want to create them. I just want some off-the-shelf component libraries built with those. This is a search for another day. So strange. I don't need a reactive data binding thing. So maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, but a component library in my mind is like a library of user interface components. Basically like web components that are already made. Things like buttons, modal dialogues, select widgets. Carbon design is what I was considering. Shoelace, we did give it a shot. We gave it a shot. Clarity design. VMware, fast design, fast team. Nord Health. That would put us more in alignment with Nordic Healthcare. CSS Doodle, okay, skipping that. W3 design, I don't know, it's like trying to be affiliated with W3C, but I don't see how that would be. Mozilla Protocol, Freshworks, design system, Volkswagen, design system, modular user interfaces. Check it out. Okay, thanks York Cube. But this again is just a thing for another day. Well, that's what I'm after. Vanilla components, and that's cool that it supports other frameworks. People are, using those frameworks. That I'm not trying to be disdainful or they have different needs than our project. For example, a lot of projects would have more complex UI needs, and so React or Vue could be a good fit. I would prefer not to have to use Yarn or NPM to install the component library. Also, this looks kind of just like they don't have a good attention to detail. Stuff like this looks weird. So this is pretty elegant looking. NPM install or unpackage it. Show me the components. Accessibility bug. And this is kind of why I don't want to invent our own UI component framework, because there's some really complex and important details that need to be worked out, and why I believe it's also important to just use the web standards, because a lot of those details are baked into the browser for years now and improving all the time. But if you reinvent a DOM or your own rendering pseudo language like a JSX type of thing, you have to also reinvent all these accessibility things. Now I say that, but I'm also interested in using Flutter, which is basically they're rendering everything. So they're doing the same thing in the mobile where they're rendering per pixel. So all the accessibility and everything needs to be baked back into Flutter. This is interesting. They have some patterns built in. So yeah, this will be a cool research task. Hey, what's up? Yeah, hey ZJ, how you doing? I'm experimenting a little bit with the interface so I can have the chat on one side and community, and then some other metadata about the stream. Thanks. Yeah, what are you up to today? How are you doing? Oh, you're doing good. I'm a bit tired. It's been a long day, but just kind of checking out some of these design systems that are that support Vanilla.js projects. This one's the one most compelling, if they mean by Nordic. This is interesting. Nord Health. Build products that refine healthcare. And because we're a health-oriented project as well in the Nordics. So let's see about us. We're in Nordic roots, so our project is based in Finland, so there's an affinity there. Very cool. They got components. Yeah, very cool. A lot of components, actually. There's select. Let's see. I just spent a bunch of time on this multi-select widget. We have less than 6 options. So there's maybe a multi-select or a larger component. They should offer some advice. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, you got censored by the bot. So your messages came in the wrong order, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, I built this project, Jerry Life Caregiving, and it's mainly just using HTML, and CSS and JavaScript to power the chart. And as we grow, we're either going to go heavily into HTML and web components. It is Bootstrap. I'm just using something that's kind of mature and stable, not going to fly away, that has more than one core maintainer, for example, and has been around for a while and continues to adapt and evolve and supports good accessibility practices, things like that out of the box. So Bootstrap checks a lot of the boxes for me. We're using the latest Bootstrap 5. I also don't like utility classes. I don't like my HTML to be so messy, and I know that people say just try Tailwind and you'll change your mind. But I think HTML and CSS kind of were designed with different purposes in mind, different ends. HTML is like a semantic layer that describes the structure, and CSS is a declarative layer that describes aesthetics. And just like I try not to mix CSS and those things, or HTML and JavaScript, or Python, basically same thing. I think there's those language boundaries exist for a region. But yeah, you're right, Bootstrap looks like Bootstrap is one of the things. So today we just added this widget that lets you have a multi-select. And I did a little research. I was trying to find a vanilla JS multi-select, and it's kind of challenging to find one that's maintained, that doesn't have a lot of dependencies, that's so small footprint. A lot of them come with jQuery, and I'm not opposed to jQuery, I just want to keep a really small footprint. So every dependency I'm trying to kind of vet. So we ended up doing this Tom select. Yeah, it's surprisingly challenging. Oh, it's actually right here. So yeah, if you want to check it out. And it's relatively recent maintenance. Yeah, and again, I'm not really against jQuery. I think it serves a lot of projects really well, and it's still in wide use. And I think it's also continuing under continued development, has a lot of contributors. But as much as we can, we're trying to keep things real slim. So when I look at an open source project, I look for recent commits, I look for multiple contributors, which this one didn't meet, concurrent contributors with significant contributions. So this one it looks like a handover of maintainers, and then a bunch of contributors who made small improvements, but nothing, like that's sustaining it. But I decided that since it is under recent development, it is vanilla JS, it is relatively small, doesn't have any dependencies, and it's just for one single form. His select widget also can be installed via CDN, so it doesn't require a build tool. That was another thing. I don't want to introduce NPM or something like that just to get my widgets to work. It checked out a bunch of boxes, and so I just, given the lack of other options, went with this one. But as a quick aside, I was just checking out if there's more holistic vanilla JS component library that we might incorporate in, similar to how we're using a charting library that has a lot of types of charts, because there's a lot of complexity when you start to build UI components, including things like accessibility. So I want to stick close to the web standards, close to the DOM, and build on the backs of people who are very talented. Yeah, that's true. They had apparently the predecessor SelectEyes. JS was a fork from SelectEyes JS, okay. Decoupling from jQuery. And then Tom Select somehow continued that fork of a fork, probably focusing more on using maybe modern JavaScript features. I haven't quite looked into it, but it has some nice plugins. What did you end up getting? We used Select 2 on our previous project. It was really great, but it has a jQuery dependency. And then there was this Quasar framework we were using with Vue.js, but I'm not using any reactive template binding utility like Vue or React. So I don't want to add a component library with a dependency on Vue or React just to get a select widget in particular. We were looking at this Quasar at one point because we want to make this very mobile friendly and potentially publish this in app stores. But right now I'm just, for this, as we are in the prototype phase, I'm just targeting HTML in the web browser. Yeah, that's a good compromise. Select 2 is super good. This is what I searched for earlier. Select 2 without jQuery, and apparently other people are doing that too. Select 2 is super nice. It's very mature, and let's check out the commit history. 2 months ago, relatively recent. Seems like it's had a long history and a lot of commits, so it's taken a while to churn the numbers. But here we go. Okay, but yeah, this is a sign too. It's kind of tapering off. The development is coming to a halt in a way. It could be just in maintenance mode. They don't need a lot of improvements, but that's also a sign that the project's health might not be good. The original developer's gone and handed over ownership. So this 2 months ago commit was probably like a CI thing or a bump from somebody. Doesn't say much, but I can check the history. But yeah, jQuery, how big is that? Yeah, eventually I'll probably have to get jQuery in here, won't I? But I'm curious what I would use it for, because I'm also, as a Django developer, looking closely and following the development of HTML. I think that would solve a lot of any dynamic UI needs I would need, and avoid DOM manipulation, because I would really wouldn't have to make an AJAX call and then render a bunch of DOM element with JavaScript. I would just do that on the server, make an HTTP request. Oh man, yeah, right. I've really been avoiding React. I don't know what it is. I think I just don't like everything being in JavaScript. It gets messy and it leaves developers way too much room to hang ourselves, basically, by mixing things and defining styles and DOM and in any arbitrary order, and it throws away a lot of existing tooling. It makes the build process slow and cumbersome and adds complexity to the development lifecycle. I don't like mixing though HTML and CSS in JavaScript. I think that's really a big mistake. So I've looked at Vue because it at least attempts to, and what's the other one? It at least attempts to separate out the concerns, and I believe the concerns are separated on the language boundary because the languages are designed for specific purposes. I mentioned earlier that HTML is a sort of a hierarchical semantic layer, and CSS is a declarative aesthetic layer, and JavaScript is a logic layer, and those you really shouldn't blend too much. They're different mindsets. Next, from Vue, yeah, I've taken a look. That looks interesting. What do you think of Svelte? I haven't used that. I haven't really had a need for it. Now at my day job, I'm like a backend engineer, so I just work in Python and JSON and gRPC, Mongo. But I don't have to worry about too much front-end stuff. We have really talented front-end developers. So yeah, I can't think of really a use case where we would need a jQuery type of thing. And I might end up adopting like a vanilla JS component library if we need more advanced user interface components. I'm thinking about it would probably be this Nordhealth design system. This is really nice looking. They have screen reader support and stuff. This is really important stuff. Yeah, and this is sort of like where our app is headed, to be honest. Yeah, do you have any open source Django work you've been able to contribute to? Oh, this is cool. This is inspiring me. I should really take a look at this. Imagine this home profile page right here as a really nice, hopefully they support dark mode, but yeah, each home you could select that and manage it as like a dashboard with widgets and a sidebar menu. And wow, this is good. Export the, yeah, it's not a big deal, of course, but something I've really been interested in for many years and have been orienting myself towards that. And so I'm always curious, and I like to look at other projects on the stream as well. So not a big deal. I'm not trying to be judgmental or anything. I'm just curious. And it's, I'm pretty lucky to have the opportunity to do some open source work as well. It's something that's inspiring to me. Yes, I wonder if this Nordhealth supports dark mode. I'm not super fixated on but it's really nice, especially when I'm working. And if it supports it out of the box and we can toggle our themes, man, this was a good find. Okay, but are you able to at least find some time in your primary work to do Django-oriented stuff? Yeah, this is basically you install, and it's got supportive tools like the Figma toolkit for the designers as well. So you can override the things with your own branding. Then it's not so bootstrap, which was the first thing you saw. This would take us away from that bootstrap into a more modern design system. I don't know if this helps. If I paste the link in the chat, should actually, yeah, you can click everything. I know, it's really unfortunate that I don't know. It's like Even people are confused what a web framework means, like a web development framework. And what we're losing when we move away or throw away projects like Django. Ruby on Rails, Laravel are also mentionable. I haven't worked with Rails much, or Laravel, but I think they're in the same vein where it's like an actual web framework where you have a lot of surprisingly complicated, and a lot of times you don't even know you need them until you do. Things like password hashing, or like how do you store securely passwords and things like that. So I think authorization, authentication are things you have to kind of cobble together if you just do like a Node.js system, even using something like Backbone or whatever. I've been looking in the JavaScript ecosystem for something that's batteries included on the scale of a Django or Ruby on Rails. There's a few that have kind of emerged in tapered Sails.js, Feather.js. We used Meteor.js, and it turned out to be, we bet on the wrong horse there. They at least have authentication. But I think, if you want to get an ORM and authorization and, well, I like Django templating. Now, Django doesn't come with REST support, so to speak, out of the box. It kind of does. You can serialize JSON, but you have to kind of go to a plugin for that. Auth-Z, auth-in, okay. Haven't heard of those. Where does your user data live then? Yeah, authentication, authorization, okay. So is this like actually a Cloudflare service? Okay, and it adds multi-factor authentication, biometric. Oh, okay. Yeah, Cognito, Mongo Atlas, auth nowadays. Okay, so for basically baking in some kind of third-party authorization service. I remember looking at AWS Cognito, and there was this Python AWS thing that's, I can't even remember what it was called, but I don't know. It's baked into Django. If possible, I think we don't really need to hand over our user credentials to a third-party service, and we can avoid that. But I don't know. What do you think of all auth? Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, with React you don't have, because in the ecosystem, and there's not a framework that's all inclusive that has those built in. So you have to basically commoditize all of your components. And that's the kind of movement in the web development industry I'm not really excited about, especially like serverless and things like that, where you start getting really fine-grained, essentially billing your build at the function, and your function invocations don't share memory and things like that. So you have to basically spawn a new memory allocation with every serverless invocation, and you just get pummeled with fees as you start paying for ingress and egress and all these things that with like a service like DigitalOcean app platform or whatever, they sort of come with it. And you don't have to really worry about paying that granularly, at least. So I think, I don't know, I'm a bit skeptical about AWS, and I think the industry's been a bit duped by the push for serverless and the commoditization of things that basically could just be built into a framework like authorization, authentication. It's kind of unfortunate, and companies pay big for it, like massive amounts. And especially like startups who are already sort of strapped for cash and trying to survive for various reasons, but a lot of it is mismanagement of money. Mismanaging money on AWS cost is like a really big killer. Yeah, for sure. I was at, just for scale, previous work, they were spending, at the peak, they were spending $70,000 a month. When I was there, I don't know what it is, it's possibly changed since then, but they were in peak startup mode where they had a lot of venture capital money to burn through, essentially, and cost a factor. And also, it's hard to see your costs on a granular level with those, with AWS, at least at that point. Hopefully that's improved, but you can see the cost at the end, the total amount, and sometimes a little bit on the service level, but not on if you have a bunch of services, but the moral of that story was we were misusing step functions, and step functions were really expensive. And really, it could have just been a virtual machine that did a thing over and over and had some state in it instead of step functions. And we were spending probably 30 to 50K on step functions, but then a bunch of others like services, of course. Okay, Cloudflare. So is it Cloudflare functions, or what's the biggest cost factor, would you say, there? You know, there's things like managed DB and whatnot, I think really helpful. I like the platform as a service idea because I don't really want to think at that level of infrastructure. I'm already kind of up to my ears with, you know, Django and writing the application logic and making sure the user interface is good. CDN, okay, crazy. CDN costs so much. Is it like mostly media then, like large videos, or wow? Or is it a high volume site with just a lot of images? Interesting. There is one more JavaScript framework that I keep hearing about, but anyway, that's a whole another aside. I just don't think, I've looked, I don't think one exists in the JavaScript ecosystem. Frankly, I don't know that a lot of JavaScript engineers know really what they're missing, especially, you know, people without backgrounds in Ruby on Rails or Laravel or Django, for example. You just kind of really don't know the scope of it. And I don't really know the scope of Django, but I'm continually surprised at what it has and how it's just saving me time. Just little details that are already worked out, like everything from like handling dates, formatting them in the templates, just surprising. You know, the middleware is a really nice thing. There was an AWS framework that didn't really even support middleware. Chalice, this is the one. I was looking at this one because it seemed kind of interesting. It's a micro framework for AWS, serverless micro framework, because the company I was working at was like super all in. I'm really excited about serverless. So if I wanted to justify any Python anything, it had to be SPA and serverless. And I was just like so disappointed at a lot of things in the company. But yeah, for example, this Chalice, you know, their middleware was an afterthought. I don't think that that's been added yet. And this Chalice is also just going to put you right into all of the AWS ecosystem. They got middleware eventually. Very cool. It's not long after I opened the feature request because I was looking into that. Yeah, and the developer experience, we haven't even mentioned it. It's like pretty painful. Even at my regular job, we're not in a serverless environment, but we're in a microservices environment. So when we can't really run our code locally and you know, test and debug things. So sometimes we can write a unit test and run that. But if it calls any of the external services, for example, or yeah, we can't really run the whole project locally like I can with a Jenkins because it has external dependencies. It can't even really start up because of even things like our logging and integrations with like service monitoring platforms and stuff like that. So the thing won't even run really locally, and debugging sometimes is like I have to commit, you know, working in memory, like working like one of my colleagues put it, they said it's like programming by I can't remember the phrase, but by imagination. Basically you have to like simulate the thing in your head, you have to imagine it. He called it, I can't remember, was a better phrase for it. Commit those changes. You know, we have the tool for like Pydantic helping, and then push it to GitHub, wait for the CI to run the unit test in an environment that has all the bits. Hey, thanks ZJ, thanks for the subscribe. And then if the test runs, you know, then I can get some feedback like, okay, test failed, this was what happened, this is what I expected. I can't even, like in Django, I love just being able to put a breakpoint and see what's going on right there, and getting the output of tests in my local environment. It makes a huge difference. Step by step, I'm able to iterate and see things and don't have to simulate so much in my brain, which, you know, our brains aren't super good at that. That's why we have computers doing it. Yeah, it's like, I think it's not just Python, the language, is I believe it's the ecosystem, also the ethos of the developer community. We value these types of things. And when I was doing JavaScript primarily, I wasn't really aware that I needed that. And maybe, you know, I'm generalizing here, but I think it's just not the same ethos, at least in the JavaScript community. And there's also a lot of sort of like a tendency to want to be the next person at the conference talk, showing why you're revolutionizing the front end and why now hooks are the next thing you need to learn, or whatever incremental innovation it is. I don't see so much of that kind of evangelism in the Python ecosystem. Not to say it's perfect, but there's more of like an ethos of like building things to last and building on other things, like extending pandas and build, like the data science ecosystem is largely working with. Django seems to be keeping pace. It's moving towards being asynchronous, fully asynchronous. There's been significant progress there. I was a little bit disappointed how channels shook out, how I don't think there's a guarantee that by design decision. Hey, what's up, Rebel? Welcome. Okay, cool. Man, well, I might as well just start up another task. I could actually do this modal dialog. That was what I initially set out to do. So let me publish the branch and merge this, and then we'll look at making this modal dialog reusable to where I can pass in the data for the resident selector. We can have the global add activity page, but I think it's also convenient if you can just pass it in at the home level and just select it from the home residence. So let's continue. It's 9 p.m. What the heck? Let's go for it. It's also cool when there's actually people hanging out to chat. It's motivating. So we'll wait for that to run. So what I'm going to do is actually create a reminder to myself to take a closer look at this Nord health. We'll create an issue with the new issue template we just created at the beginning. Maybe a discussion for that one. Nord, what do they call it? Nord health. Because this, as you mentioned, CJ, will have the benefit of making our app look much more presentable, professional, particularly in healthcare systems, where we're basically trying to appeal to professionals in group home or institutional care, group care, 24/7 assisted living. And we don't want to be, too looking like Microsoft Excel or something like that, but we should have a professional aesthetic. And Bootstrap is clean and clear, but maybe we could add a little bit better polish there. So let's turn to GPT. And I think I was in here when I did the Nord Health. Just by the color. Crazy. The dark theme. Oh, that's almost the same as the GitHub uses. I don't think that they use. It's this kind of, off gray. BG dark. Nice. Let's see. Well, that's probably enough information for ChatGPT to help me write just a basic reminder to check out this Nord Health design system or implement it. That's a good. Yeah, the interesting thing is we have a feature request open to be able to toggle between the background dark and background light. So choice. I defaulted it right now to dark so I could work on it without straining my eyes. That also means we would need to toggle these charts, which it's just a similar flag. In the Plotly library, you just say dark theme, light theme, but we'd have to coordinate it. And since we're not using a client-side reactive library or something like that, we have to make it full page refine. That's by this decision. So we would basically need to persist it in the database, which there's a pull request open that adds a collection for user preferences, including thematic toggle and language choice. So we are working on supporting multiple languages. We don't support it yet. Is that what you're asking? Well, the thing is, it depends how you implement it, but I'm really relying on server-side rendering, and these chart libraries render on the server. And I don't think there's just a class that I could swap out on the charts. So it's got to be coordinated. Yeah, and it's, I don't mind a quick reload. I think browsers have gotten a lot better about not flashing white and not leaving the user staring at a blank page and reloading, which is the whole thing that spawned the SPA initiative. Yeah, we're using Plotly Py, so our metrics are pretty much Python functions, which are define charts.py. Right here, for example. We prepare some data, and then we get a string, which is actually just HTML. And essentially is Plotly Py just takes some configuration, and it takes the data as a data frame or a list of dictionaries, and we can configure it after the fact. And the dark mode toggle somewhere. Maybe I'm missing it. Anyway, that's, yeah. Plotly is pretty good though. It's pretty mature. Documentation leaves a little bit to be desired, but I mean, it works really good. This is actually one, I was trying to get a horizontal bar chart with Plotly, just a single row, and it had too much chart junk. I couldn't get it slimmed down, so I just did this one with HTML. But these other ones, this type of stuff is incredibly complicated, and I wouldn't want to bake my own plotting library. Consideration about what we should use for the long run, and I'm evaluating Plotly against a couple other ones like e43. I'd like to write mainly Python though. It's not a hard requirement. I don't mind a little bit of JavaScript for the charts, but it's nice if Python can generate the JavaScript for the charts, and I can just think in Python the whole time. But e43 is really nice. Have you checked this one out? It's now an Apache project, but then there's great ones in the Python ecosystem like Seaborn, but we want our plots to be interactive. So then we would look at Bokeh, which does pair interactive charts rendered or prepared on the server and then rendered in the DOM, but it does that JavaScript for you. So this is one I'm considering, but making the switch from a Plotly to another library is a pretty big undertaking. So at this point in the project, it doesn't really make sense. We'll merge that. There was another interesting one, uses the grammar of graphics. I can't remember the name of it, but it also produces interactive plots. Plot 9, haven't heard of that one. Maybe it isn't the grammar of graphics. Maybe I misspoke, but there's a Python. No. Where was it in Oregon? Altair, there it is. Found it. Yeah, Washington EDU. So this is an interesting one as well. So these would be my main candidates for an alternative to Plotly. You know, it's got to be comprehensive and handle things that are very complicated and well beyond my capabilities. And they're statistical in nature, because our plots could potentially start becoming more analytical, but also give me a nice ergonomics. So I just want to be able to pass in a data frame and say, these are the columns, and these are the type of values, and this is the type of chart. Yeah, and let me know what you think about those. See what you come up with. But yeah, here's an example. You get your chart, you get your data, you define a chart, you pass the data in the tabular form. So I'm assuming this is a data frame, pandas probably. So I pass the data and I say, hey, here's my X and Y. You know, I don't have to, a lot of the charting libraries, like even Plotly, initially you have to kind of map over your data and split out the columns into essentially, you know, one-dimensional, a list or whatever. But I don't want to even have to think about that. I just want to say, I'm going to be more declarative. I want to talk about colors and the plot type and stuff like that. So yeah. And then we need it to be interactive, because what we're trying to do is help people give them a framework that they can start asking their own questions. We can't anticipate what all questions people will want to ask. Another interesting thing is cross-filtering, if we can do that, but right now we don't have any charts that would be good for a cross-filtering dashboard. But you select a date range in one chart and all the other ones are updated. Some really good examples of that, like Datadog has really good dashboard support, and I'm thinking there's a few other. Plotly has the framework Dash, and then I believe with Bokeh you can also do similar. You have similar capabilities, but with Dash you kind of quickly get into their enterprise mode. You get sucked into that. And that's one of the reasons I'm a little bit skeptical about Plotly. Okay, but let's get to some interesting stuff. I mean, this is all interesting. I'm having a good time talking about it. So let's create this issue. Okay, cool. Vacation brain. Yeah, I'm like on permanent vacation brain. As I get older, my brain is just more mushy. Very cool. But this ChatGPT has been really helpful in a lot of ways. Like writing all this for me, kind of expanding on my ideas, help me kind of flesh out things and think from different angles that I wouldn't otherwise. It's pretty good. I'm just going to take it wholesale. I'm not going to read through it. It's kind of a copy and paste issue. 25. Hey, you're at your peak. No need. Yeah, that's good. Now look at that. It's a good issue. I will add a help wanted, and I don't know if it's a good first issue. Probably not. It's a bit complicated, but yeah, it could be something, just a proof of concept that might be easy for someone. Well, happy 25 though, by the way. That's really cool. What did you do to celebrate? This is literally the peak, your biological peak, that is. And you survived pretty much the most dangerous period of our lives is around the ages of 18 to 25, when we're most error prone. We're doing brazen and thoughtless actions. The biggest mistakes in our lives, we usually make them in that age range. So wow, life is hazardous, of course, but yeah, surviving to 25 is a big achievement. Hey, but dinner with your family, that is the most important thing. That's like everything, in fact, is what I'm kind of reminding myself of. So yeah, everything else is extra. All right, let's see. So we've got a nice issue there, and I merged my thingamabob. So let's look at some beautiful Bootstrap modal dialogues. Now I can close all these because we've got, oh, that's super nice. That's dark mode. Oh yeah, I was going to take a quick look at this. Grammar of graphics. Okay, so yeah, it's not super much the point. The grammar of graphics wasn't the point, but the declarative interface to graphics was the point. All right, cool. So I will now pull down the changes from main, and hopefully this will be fairly straightforward. It's essentially when you're viewing a home, let me make sure the server's running. You go to a home here, and instead of using this add activity that is sort of the global, maybe it's unnecessary though. But maybe you just want to add an activity for that given home, selecting only the residents for that home. It could be confusing to users to have a global activity, add activity on the navigation menu, and then having one down here on the home. Let me see what else then. Well, this is one. Yeah, so in a way the COVID kind of helped increase your odds of just survival and not doing something that you'll regret until you're 80. So this is one where we're starting to get into access control. We're using the built-in Django authentication framework, and now I need to add essentially row level permissions on the home level. So each home should have authorized users. First, I just need to be able to add them. Then when I'm doing things like listing homes, we'll only list the homes that a user is the member of. So stuff like that. And if they try to visit a home they're not a member of, they'll get an authorization error. Not authorized. This is really important in institutional care, where you need to control access and preserve privacy and things like that. Okay, well, let's give it a try. Let's try this one out. Now, we have the Django admin. So that's where we'll probably start then. Get it working in the admin first, starting at the model level. So for this, it's interesting. What would be a good name? Home users. Let's see what ChatGPT says, if it can give us some options. I'll read this aloud in a second. So essentially defining a Django model class that will be used for access control by connecting user accounts to home model instances. For example, when listing homes on the homes page, the page will list only certain homes that the user is a member of. We'll also likely need to attach some metadata to the intermediate table, such as can administer or some other semantic like that, or is admin, I don't know. Something equivalent, so there will be some users who can manage the home. They'll have additional privileges. And some who can only access the data and maybe perform basic activities like recording an activity. So let's just see what GPT says when I just kind of express what I'm trying to achieve. The one thing I would like to ask it for is what are some good class names for this? But sometimes if I just tell it what I'm trying to do, I'll get much more than I would have even thought to ask. Okay, and even it's generating some code. So to implement an access control mechanism in Django where the user accounts are connected to home model instances with varying permission levels, such as can administer. This is GPT-4. Really good stuff. You should create a many-to-many relationship between the user and the home models using a through model. Yep. This through model will hold the metadata for the relationship, such as permission levels. Yes. Here's an example of how you might define your models. So we have the home, user-home relation, unique together, user and home, so there should only be one user and home relation per user and home. And then home. Members. Okay. Many-to-many field through user home relation. And then we can, define the model metadata there. Super good. Yeah, and I don't mind being explicit that it's a relation. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Now, well, it knows that I need to inherit from, get the auth model user, but we actually have a custom user model. So I'll just change it up there. That's no problem. So essentially, really good. Showing me how to populate it in views and how to administer it. If you need to attach more metadata in the future, you can simply add more fields to the home user home relation. To flexible access control. So I was just wondering if there's any ideas for model methods that we could use that would sort of let me encapsulate the authentication logic. That way it would be attached to the home, for example, and I could take a request user and pass it into can administer or something like that. That way I don't have to define that in the views, which potentially could sprawl across multiple views. But yeah, so home is a member, that's a good one. Home can administer, so that's good. And that way you have this idea in Django of fat models. The model has a lot of responsibility, and your business logic mostly resides in the model and a little bit in the views, but not very much in the template. We don't mix too much logic there, right? So this is cool. I think this is a good design. So let's take a look at this. I'll call it home user relation, since we're going to put this in the home models, and primarily the perspective here is coming from the home. The home is where the authentication logic lives, stuff like that. So yeah, just a small change in perspective of the nomenclature here of the model. Okay, so we got our home defined here, and we're going to apply a similar thing to the home group, but it's going to get complicated. But essentially we can have people who are working in these institutional care facilities and networks that could be quite large. In fact, this tool was originally built in the city in Finland, and we deployed it across the whole city at the later stage of the project, the trial. We had like originally we were prototyping it, and then we had a longer term project. It lasted about 3 years, and we got a lot of feedback and made a lot of improvements. It was a great opportunity, and we're hoping to reboot the project this year. We're a bit dormant. Our business is a bit dormant, but the open source project, I'm rebooting it now in preparation of hopeful 2024. Okay, so where is this? Home is quite large. I've got a lot of properties, and a lot of these are relating to analytics and stuff. So but here, I want to add just a home group, but what I was getting at though is we'll not only need access control at an individual home level, but there's clusters of homes, like a campus, where you originally built this project just in this care home that was in a campus with something like 1,000 residents. And we started in just one of the homes there, and then we knew that we needed to group the homes together and have access control. Some people can see the whole system, some people only see one home. So that's why we have this home group, and we'll add further access control there. I just need the general pattern. And I need to get the, well, it already knows it's a user's user, so I guess that's good. But I can import this helper, Django helper, to get the user. Maybe Copilot knows. From core utils, get user model, isn't it? Well, there it is. Django contrib auth, get user model. I don't always remember that stuff, and sometimes it's quicker now to get the large language model to sort of suss that out for you by prompting it, rather than kind of going to the Django docs or Stack Overflow or something like that. So I found it more effective just to work my prompting skills a bit. So here we actually just want to grab the user model. Too much to remember, and there's a lot of embedded information latent in the machine learning model. Generative AI. Yeah, so this is going to return from our settings. It's going to look in our apps for our settings auth user model, which I've defined in our settings. So it's right here. So it knows where it is, and it'll grab it. Good. Next up, let's see what the Copilot suggests. Okay, it knows I'm going to go for the home. Home's home. Now, since we're in home models, I think we can just do that. I don't know, 6 in one, half dozen in another. Cascade, related name, home user relations. So we've got, from a user, we have home user relations, and from a home, we have home user relations. That should be fine. Now, let's see. If I do 2, is class meta, seeing how much the GPT and the Copilot differ. Okay, I like this. I like defining my database tables and the meta, but it didn't know about the unique together. It didn't consider that. Let's see if it gets it here. Constraint. So it's adding a constraint this way. Interesting. Well, let's see if I type unique together user home. It's a bit more straightforward that way. Let's just see if it comes up with anything else. So we got the stir method. So let's maybe put that in there. Self user, self home. Yeah, good. Get absolute URL. We don't really need that. No, we don't need that. But it's good. This is, I kind of like let the LLM kind of explore the space of common possibilities, and a lot of times I come up with some interesting stuff. So maybe we'll just define this stir method before the meta. I don't know, class meta. I don't know what sequence to define these, but okay. So very close. And then, is this many-to-many field necessary? I suppose it's if I want to use members. But this, I believe, is going to get me user objects. Yep. So this is some Django magic as far as I understand. Because if I just say home user relations, I'll get home user relation instances, and I'll have to go one extra degree to get to the user. I'll have to go home user relations for each, get the user. I think that's the difference here. So let me add this members field here. Good grief, this is a fat model. I might have gone a little bit too far in my fat model design with Django, but I can clean that up, no problem. So the same thing here, but since I'm using it in a couple places, I'm going to use the same reference, user model, after all my imports, something like that. All right. So we've got migrated changes. That's looking good though. And conversely, if I add a homes property, on the user, I can say homes, get the homes where I'm a member. One problem is I need to group these into groups, so it's gonna get complicated. Let's make those migrations. Lazy reference to homes user. home relation, but app homes doesn't provide a model user home relation. Okay. It's a bit challenging here. Okay, let's see. So it's defining the user home relation before the home, and then it can say through, and then, but the problem is, this is weird. I think this is a hallucination. Home is, we're going to define it here or here, but not both places. That's weird. So that's a hallucination. I need to just do this. Use string references. Maybe that'll help. See if I can make migrations there. No, shoot. All right. Well, it's a bit of a mind boggler. That's no problem. We'll see if GPT can help us out a little bit. The error you're encountering is likely due to the order of definition of your models and how Django resolves model references in many-to-many field through a custom through model. Here's how you can resolve this. Ensure the home user relation model is defined before it's referenced. Okay, that was what I was kind of thinking. But then do we have to make sure that the home is defined before the home user reference model? This is a bit tricky situation. Yeah, see, it's assuming both home and home user relation models are in an app named homes. Well, I don't need this helper. I don't need this members helper because I will have the reverse and I can get the members. I can make a property. I'll show that in a minute. Let's just get these migrations to work and then we'll make a property that essentially is going to grab the home members and from a user it'll grab the homes that they're a member of, hopefully with home groups. But let's see, will these migrations work? They should. Yes, I'll migrate that in. So then if I register with the admin, we should be able to just start working with it for a moment. Yeah, so we'll run that server. If this looks good, then we'll commit these changes and we will then work on the, I think I'll just add the property here, working with this stuff. So now we have home groups, home user relations, and home. Huh. I guess it alphabetizes them. But essentially I can select a user and a home. Saving that. That was it. Shows me that. But if I try to add myself again to home 2, it already exists. Good. That way we don't get polluted authorization instances. Okay, cool. So this user is not technically authorized to do anything aside that I'm a user, super user, and we just haven't built any authorization logic. But that's progress. We're making progress. So just while it's fresh on my mind, I will add the property method to members is what I'm after. Residents. Self query set user model. There we go. Returns a query set of all members of this home user model objects filter home user relations equals self. Hey, that's good. Then I can use that for authorization logic. Essentially, it's used in a lot of ways, but for example, the user should not be able to add an activity for any of the residents in that home unless they are a member of that home or an administrator, system administrator or otherwise. But this is just one step at a time. And then for the user model, I can probably add a helper function. And I think one goal here is to redo the homes page so that this lists, instead of all of the homes, it lists only the homes that a user is a member of, unless they're a super user. I don't know if I should do that in this pull request. The system will allow the users to be associated with one or more homes. That we can do now. Homes page will only list the homes to which the regular user has been assigned. Okay. I added these constraints. Users attempting to access a home profile will get a 403. All right, this is good. Properly assigned users will have full access to the home profile, including the ability to create activities. All right, so next, let's work on that. All right, ChatGPT wrote this for me. It's like pretty good. Good definition of done. It's a non-trivial issue. That's why I didn't label it as a good first issue. So if we go to the accounts model, we're going to basically do this. Reverse. Let's see what this offers. We're using the abstract user model. Has a username, first name, and last name, email. Interesting. So I guess that get full name is a good one. And we're going to now add the property. Is admin. That's a bit redundant though. It's just aliasing is super user. Doesn't quite make sense. Homes. Let's see if it gives us anything here. It got pretty close. But I think if I give it a little bit more context information, we're getting close to having a circular dependency. Because here we basically, we'll have a runtime dependency on the user model, but I didn't import it. So I think I'm safe to import this. And what we want to do, annotate this a bit to say we're going to return and get, there we go. We're going to return a query set of home objects. Self home set doesn't exist. Let's say that's a string. Query set's not been imported. So it looks like Copilot's struggling with this one a bit, but we'll get it. DB model import query set. So we're going to return a query set of homes. Hope y'all, oh, here we go. We got it. Home object filter, home user relation is self. That's it. It's a bit hard to read. It's incorrect, or it's auto-generated. So our counts model, counts is the app, the model is user. Well, it's usually something that I'm doing wrong when it's like this level of code. It has not been installed. Okay, one thing that I probably didn't do, let's check the settings. Installed apps. Well, it's been installed. That's configured. Let me just kill the server and try it again. This didn't show up until I sort of introduced this circular dependency. So it could be, it's kind of a red herring. It's like an error that's saying one thing, but the really problem is something else that was happening. Python's usually pretty good at pointing me at the right place. Yeah, that was what it was. So I created a good circular import situation. I think if I just uncomment this line, yep. All right, just didn't notice that in the terminal when I did it. I'm gonna take a real quick break, refresh my drink, use the restroom, and we'll continue here. Yeah, just figure out a different approach to querying, getting the user homes and grouping them by groups, which maybe we'll do in a future session, but at least I need to get the list of homes on the home page. All right, I'll be right back. Excellent. Oh yeah, I like that too, thanks. I should put a little music or have the music continue on that screen, I guess. I gotta figure out my layers of the OBS setup. Music, background music should continue on the BRB screen. Yeah, all right. So yeah, essentially I just need a way of getting the homes. I think we were pretty close earlier. I'll have a query set. Essentially I can get the user homes through the, what's the name of that? The between, or what do they call it? What's Django call that? Between, is it the through model, the through. And this I need if type checking. So let me see if I have, because I like to annotate these things. Then I'll import this. We won't have the circular because it's just going to have that when I'm type checking. Alternatively, I could have put this in quotes. I like it without the quotes. So from home models import. Oh, I forgot about that. I could have just put the import in there. No, actually, there it is. Even when I'm type checking, hey. One of the two. It's the type checking one. All right. This is so weird. Actually, it's not fixing it right away. Yeah, they're going to complain. But at least I know that it returns a query set. I'd like to tell it it's a query set of homes. But okay. So now I have a way to get the homes from the user. So that's good. And the reason being is there's an implicit relationship between the home and the group. And if a user has access to a home, they have at least access to that home and the group container, but not necessarily the other homes in the group. Unless they've been assigned at the group level, then they can assign. We're not gonna have to worry about that in this session, but when I'm listing homes here, they should also be listed as according to the groupings. So I'll show you just what I mean by that. So I don't have any groups defined. Oh, sorry, these are Django groups. I mean home groups. So I add group 0, and then we can take one of these existing homes and assign it to group 0. Maybe a couple of them, doesn't quite matter. But the main thing is now when I refresh, same data, but the group is visible. And the reason for that is these homes in our original prototype typically have 15 to 30 residents per home, but they could be organized in like a campus with, 10 or 20 homes or more even grouped into larger buildings. So it's essentially, it's an institutional care home, care facility, care campus. It's really large. So yeah, we just needed that so it aligns with the mental model and how the organization sees the care system. So let's just say we'll add home 3 to the group as well. Now here's the deal. On this page, I need to show just the homes Yeah, just the homes where I'm a member. And if they happen to be within a group, then I would show the group, but not the homes where I'm not a member in that group. Probably making this sound more complicated than it is. Let's just take a look at this homes view. Let's see what I can commit so far. So I think we're good on the home user relation. I did add those. I forgot to commit them. I see. So let's go ahead and commit that. Home user relation. Then I'll add the methods separately. And my linter, user model. Not defined. So I just need to also include this, and this is pretty good. There we go. So now I got get user model, I've got the user model, and we should be good. Yeah. And then home members, we'll work on the access control in a moment. I forgot to commit my register function and get full name, but I'm just going to do that as a bonus commit. Now we're not using type checking though, so I'm not going to commit that. Register the model. We might eventually disable the Django admin, but for now it's very useful in development. So I'll revert this change since it's not being used. Bonus commit. What's going on? Man, I'm just having some troubles getting this. I need to get the query set in there. There we go. Now we're good to go. What did I do? Let's get some feedback from the pre-commit. Interesting. So it is just gonna not let me do that. Can I do that? Home's not home. Hey Eddie, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. Very cool. Wow, we're getting closer to our following goal. Nice. I think the emoji bomb makes my system pretty slow. Maybe not, maybe it's alright. Alright, we were able to commit this, but I'm not liking it. It's still saying it's going to return a query set of any. Something is fishy, but okay, I'll take it. I'll push these up to GitHub real quick and link in the chat this pull request in case anyone wants to check it out. You can see at the bottom of the video here to the right is the source repository on GitHub, and currently working on this pull request, number 86. So in case you're just tuning in, this way you can see what we've done so far. Very cool. So now we're going to just take a quick look at this homes page and try to get this same. So I need to add my user to home 1 and 3, and essentially the same view, but based on just the ones that my user is associated with. Later I'll add the admin privilege. Since I'm a super user, I should see everything. But homes 1 and 3. So let's go to the home user relations, make sure the server is running, reload. Home user relations. Now I've got, let me double check. Home 2 is already there. So that'll be good. We'll have one home that's not in home group, and maybe one that is in home group is fine for now. Now when I go over to this homes view, we'll see how this is constructed. I don't quite remember. So everything is new. So let's take a look at the outline. We've got a home group list view and a home detail view. So what we want is a home group list view. This is a list view more or less, and I've overridden the context data here. And all we've done is pretty straightforward. We get a query set of home objects. So this is actually, and then filter them and return them. Then I do the grouping in the template. Very good, very good. But I need to get the request user, and I can't remember, does Django? I have a get context function, data function, that's going to give me some data. Let me prepare some data for the template. That's not already there. By default, Django is just going to give me a list of homes and home groups, but I didn't want that. I wanted to do my own grouping, so we were overriding this get context data. And now inside of that, I want to get a reference to the user, the request user. And I don't know if it passes the request in here as an argument or if there's something else. In the Django list view, you can access the request object and thus the request user in the get context method. This method is part of Django's class-based views and is used to pass additional context to a template. The self variable within this method refers to the view object, which has a request attribute. So this is the cool thing. I have self user homes. I don't know that I need the objects. Homes without group. No, that won't work. I see. So it's Django's preparing a list of home groups for me. I'm grouping those in the template, home groups variable. So I actually would need to override this home groups to get a list of home groups that the user is a member of. And at that point, I don't need a list view anymore. In fact, I could just use this template view. So let's go ahead and do that. So essentially, this is going to be a bit trickier than I was hoping, but I need to get the home groups. Let's just start here. Home group objects all. I'll refine it. But first I'm going to check this home without group. This should now be only the ones I'm a member of. Oh yeah, and this needs to be self-request user. Oh man, this is more complicated than I was hoping. We'll pull through it. Okay, models 22. Counts models line 22. Small details. So the individual homes is working. But what's happening here is we're getting all of the home groups. All of the homes that are in a group, even the ones I'm not a member of. If I look, it's a bit subtle, but I'm only a member of homes 1 and 2. And we have home 3 here. This shouldn't be in the list. It's in the list because where I was just working in the view, I'm getting all of the home groups. And then for each of the home groups, we are, which there's only one home group, we're iterating over all of the homes within that home group. So what I actually need to do is get all the home groups with group to the inverse, and then either group them here, group and sort here, or group and sort in the template. Let's see what Copilot will do. Maybe not the group name, just the, yeah, group name is fine actually. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it's just gonna iterate over them. All right, now we got nothing. But let me check my home model, make sure that this is correct, because this was all just generated by ChatGPT, and it's just doing its best effort, but it doesn't have enough context usually to really help. So I have to very carefully review everything. But we do have the home group there. Yeah, so from the home, we have the home group. That is correct. We know that that's working. So if home group dot name is the next thing. So home group has a name, that is correct. What I should do here is use the debugger. And let me check my template to make sure I'm using the correct template variable. That could be the core problem. So if I go to the home group list, home groups, that was the thing. Home groups, then we're going to set it, then we're going to append to it. Okay, we got the group, but now not the homes. Okay, we're getting close. Now it could be that my home is referring to the wrong thing. Home and home groups. Yeah, so I think my iterator is wrong here. So if we look at this data structure a little bit closer. So we're creating a home groups dictionary, and for each of those we're creating a key. I think this should be a list, because essentially query sets behave like lists. They're iterables, whereas a dictionary is iterable, but you have to iterate over the keys or values. And I don't think this is going to necessarily fix it, but let's just refresh this to see. Okay, so our home groups, oh yeah, I see why that won't work. For this one, it might be good to use the Django regroup function in the template, or continue this approach and then restructure it as a list so I can iterate over it later. So what I do this items is going to get them both in a tuple. And what does my template expect? So it's basically say group name. Whoa, hey, Zokiwi, thanks for the follow. The emoji bomb. I think this will, Alright, get us a step closer. So essentially I'll have a dictionary for each group, and that way in my template I can be more explicit. And then the homes, I'll iterate over those. So this will be a string, and this will be a list of, anyway, I'm not going to annotate that. It won't work. What am I thinking? Alright, so let's start here. Home group name, home group name, for home and home group homes. Pretty close. Let's see what happens. Didn't get it. Wow, it went the whole mile. It did the whole thing. ZJ, have you looked into getting multiple monitors? I'm sure you were here. Yeah, I have a monitor here, and then my work one is over here. So yeah, it's a crucial one. That's true. See what happened. So it's pretty much the same thing. Okay, debug time. I'm just guessing too much, right? And we have the debugger, let's use it. Boing, boing, boing. Too much guessing. I've gotten pretty far. So before we return to context, let's just check everything out and see what this looks like. Yeah, it is. Hitting this little red dot here and then pressing debug. Let's see. Make sure I got my correct debugger. There it is. Play. And then start it up, refresh, boom. Cool. So what we're after here is, what does this home group with homes look like? It's looking good actually. Has a group name, and it has only one home. The data is correct. What am I doing wrong in my template? And this is a home instance, right? So it's representing a home class. Okay, so the data's there. The data's there. The template isn't. Boom. Let's put them next to each other. We know the home without groups one is not having problem. I'll add my little markup later. But for home group and home groups, int4, can we just see, without anything else, the group name, right? I think that should work. The issue is I've got, my view code has gotten more complicated. So now that I've assigned users to homes, I need to list the homes on the home listing page. That works. I can just list all the homes that the user is assigned to, but our data model has a level of hierarchy where some homes can be grouped together. And so I need to reassemble the homes with a group. Okay, let me put it down here. How's this? It's supposed to have a ducker though. It's supposed to have side chain compression applied to the music. But can you still hear the music? I think it's nice to have the music, but I don't know if like people turn it up to hear the music and then my voice is real loud, if that would be really annoying. So I sort of tried to balance them a little bit. Yeah. I turn it down. So here we should at least get the group name for each of those. So let's see, does this work? I hit play, nothing. Okay, let me remove the breakpoint for a moment. Make sure I'm using the, oh, you know what I didn't do is I didn't put it in the template context. Damn, it happens. Now, play that funky music. Oh man. Yeah, the attenuation. So is the music ducking my voice, or is my voice ducking the music? Because it should be that the voice, if I go to the filters, for the background music, I've got a compressor, sidechain ducking source, audio input capture. It probably wasn't working at all. Okay, well, but yeah, it wasn't, I don't know. I'm not really super confident about the OBS built-in plugins. I had a compressor on my voice, but it was also making it sound like I was underwater. So maybe I have to have in a threshold where the music's actually getting above. It seems to be around negative 45 dB. Well, yeah, let me know if the music's still too loud. I put it down pretty low, but I'd like it to be audible at least. Oh, now I have to save my view. Dude, it's getting late. It's 10 p.m. I'm getting tired, so I'm making easy mistakes. Yep. Yes. Did it. I'd like for this bar not to be there on the last one when we're iterating over them. Yeah, it's so great. And to have the debugger just like show me what's going on and show me usually the mistakes I'm making, honestly. Usually if I'm getting some weird error from Django, or like, and especially if I can't find any other people with that error, then duh, I'm doing something weird. And sometimes the problem is that the error is not always pointing me in the right direction. And so it can be very confusing. Yeah, like earlier. Okay, so this is great. We got the homes working. Let's commit this and then add one little nice touch. Yeah, sometimes the error takes reading, and sometimes it's like, I don't know what the phrase is for this, but it's like the error triggers another error higher in the call chain, and that's the one that surfaces to the terminal. But the really source of the problem is something else. But yeah, it's really nice on my brain too. And my brain, like I say, is slowly turning to mush. So I need a nice developer experience. All right, so now we've got this fixed. I fixed this model. And this is what allowed us to get the homes where the user's been assigned. I'll probably need, or at least some logic in the view that's going to conditionally return all of the homes for the super user. I don't know. Maybe I should add that in this session or later. Oh man, I also need to add unit tests. So I'm not going to be able to complete this pull request tonight. It's too late. But I'll return to it with fresh attention and everything tomorrow evening. But we've made good progress. And essentially, it's still a list view, but it's not like inheriting from the list view. I'll leave the naming convention. Yeah, you can get your feet wet in React and see how long you can keep up with the changes. You know, change is constant. We know that. We've known that for millennia. But at some point, you know, you don't want to build your house on sand dunes. What's the saying there? And it feels like JavaScript is like trying to build something while the whole ground is shift. Yeah, that's true. React is JSX in particular, putting everything in JavaScript. Craziness. CS. Yeah, you don't want to build your house on sand and sand dunes. Yeah, it just does. It feels like building a house on sand. This project, in fact, was built in a JavaScript framework called Meteor.js. You probably have heard of that one. It was popular for a while, and it's still around. But there's several problems with Meteor. One is they banked too heavily on MongoDB because they are real heavy into reactivity, and Mongo oplog was this operation log was the source of their reactivity. However, as you know, most web applications have a relational data model. So that meant defining schemas and relationships using downstream contrib libraries. So, you know, Meteor didn't include any support for defining schemas or relationships with the assumption that you don't need those. But I beg to differ, and you end up in like a situation where your schema is actually, it still exists. It doesn't go away. It's just spread throughout your whole application, business logic and stuff, and maintaining backwards compatibility layers and things like that. The other issues, it didn't really come with some critical batteries, including a router. Like page navigation was sort of an afterthought, left to the community. It was kind of a weird thing. There was just some other crucial batteries that weren't included. Okay, I can fix that. So if I do the background music filter, I believe if I increase the release time to like half a second, it should be more smooth. How about that? Yeah, that makes sense. And I do kind of want it to be a little bit loud, roughly on the same mix as my spoken dialogue, so that people don't have to like turn up and down. Because I think it's nice to hear music when it's quiet, but my voice shouldn't be overpowering, or they should, yeah, mix. So it's peaking at -25, and my voice is clearly going to be louder than that, -15. But is this a little bit better mix? But long story short, the Meteor devs eventually sold. They had an exit strategy. They went on to develop some interesting projects. Meteor did have a lot of potential, but it got swept away with React, and then later got Vue, and now Svelte, and also these support for other. It's more framework agnostic on the front end, library agnostic. But it originally started with Blaze. They even had, you could build an end-to-end app, including Cordova support was pretty cool. A lot of potential, but the reactive development model was really fun. Great for prototyping, but it just was building on sand and our project wasn't sustainable. So now we're moving back to more sustainable foundation, while I think still being able to build with innovative tools. I'm really looking forward to experimenting with some more asynchronous code in Django and potentially HTMX, as well as potentially improving the user experience by adopting a more comprehensive UI component library. Some good stuff on the horizon. Now the decision being, and I don't have to like go to sleep anytime soon, I can stay up a bit late. I think I'm going to add a condition in the view that if I'm a super user, it's going to show me everything. That means that's going to be a bit tricky. No, that won't be tricky. Let's take a look at it. And then the last thing I think I'll do, maybe unit tests, but will be to remove this divider at the end of the list if it's the last item. Let's take a look at the view though. So essentially I just need two query sets, or yeah, it's two query sets. It's one homes with a group and one homes without group. When the user is not a super user, it's going to get it from the user model. When the user is a super user, it's going to get it from the homes and home group models. So that's only a subtle difference. Worked on a project at Django REST framework. It was good. The issue is that it felt pretty slow versus others like Fast API. Yeah, that's the problem. I think a lot of it is because it's not asynchronous, and it wasn't when the Django REST framework came around. The async support wasn't there. But with Django 4.25, we're getting a lot better. And I think they've gotten all the way to the ORM layer where just a few of the database operations are synchronous. But even in the ORM, there's asynchronous operations. But what do you think of that Django alternative? And what is it called? Ninja. Because I'm, for this project, more than likely going to be adding a REST, REST support. And we're not going REST first or API first development. That's a bit overkill. Just like I don't do really test-driven development. I'm not opposed to it. I don't think there's so many complications with writing tests or writing API endpoints that it doesn't make sense until you've made more headway in writing your app code and knowing how the app works. Because a lot of things I'm just figuring out. I'm not really ready to write an API for it. Or I don't know, what kind of a unit test I would write. But what do you think about this Django Ninja? Have you looked into this one? Because I think it's built around async and Pydantic, so it's essentially like the Fast API for Django. JSON schema and Open API, so it's really, and I guess it's not Django, although it has Django in the name. Django friendly. I don't know. Yeah, so I guess it is Django. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are if you peek through it. But you can see it's got a lot more concurrency because it's using asynchronous code than Django REST and Flask. But yeah, I mean, we use Fast API where I work and have a pretty good experience with that. All right, so then all we've got to do though here is just get a reference to this user first. There we go. So now we keep typing self request. I'll clean it up later. We'll see if this looks legible. But essentially, if they're a super user, do that. And since I'm a super user, I see everything. Good. Man. It's a bit of a heavy function though. It's doing quite a lot, isn't it? What I can do is regroup homes or something like that. And just move this up here a little bit. And I think it's just going to take for home and homes now. And then it'll return. And hopefully same thing. I'd rather use Bootstrap on a quick apps, but I'm tired of how it looks myself. Yeah, that is one of the common concerns with Bootstrap is it is fairly generic. It looks nice, it's appealing, and it does help you iterate pretty fast. It's under active development. Like last week had a contribution. You know, it supports accessibility and all sorts of, there's a lot that has gone into this framework, and it is tapering off, but it has, well, at least 2 core developers who have been active in the last, let's say, year. And it's had several significant contributors beyond, let's say, 25 commits, beyond 10 commits. That's, in my book, fairly significant. It's sustained, so that's a good sign. Tailwind, what do you think? Let's take a look. This is, you know, just one way of looking at it, but when I'm thinking of open source, sustainability and longevity are 2 things that I've learned to be very appreciative of. Okay, you know, Tailwind hasn't been around a while, but it's been fairly sustained since 2018, so not as long as Twibs, but I mean, it's good. Yeah, and 2023 had several maintainers, so that's a good sign, you know. Commits yesterday, you know, then you look at other details like there's CIs in place, that's good. Popularity, the documentation, you know, excellent. I think Tailwind is excellent. So yeah, I think these 2 projects would be the main ones I would even consider touching on a new project. And I just happen to go with Bootstrap for simplicity, and I don't really want to think, I want to think at the component level, the UI component level, and not worry too much about making my own UI definitions at this point of the project. Contrast that with Bulma. You probably heard that one 3 hours ago. All right. But sometimes that can just be something like a dependency upgrade or something like that. Bulma, about the same age as Tailwind. Development is like almost, well, they had maybe like a really high development level. Let's see, high number of commits. So this had 200 though, so that can kind of dwarf the later ones, but this one had only 80. But let's take a look at just 2023. It's basically one person, and I think that's the story of Bulma. It's like one person, one passion project, and based on that, I would not bank on Bulma. Just, you don't have the same diversity and stability, and diversity matters. Also, some of the Bulma defaults I think were questionable. The browser overrides. So yeah, I would, on my projects, be looking at Tailwind and Twibs, and I went with that. Yeah, I can see the appeal, and it does, you know, when you get enough of the definitions and you get familiarity with it, you can make some really nice stuff. And I'm just not writing enough reusable code, and my templates, I don't want to, you know, they're even with Bootstrap classes. I'd like to say this is a container or this is a card. And I know that's antithetical to the sort of the Tailwind philosophy, but even though it now supports, and there are component libraries built with Tailwind, I kind of like being at this level, and I haven't encountered any scale issues, so maybe my projects just haven't been big enough where this would start to become an encumbrance. And I haven't really tried to customize Bootstrap too much too, because I know that that's a common complaint. So yeah, maybe I'll take another look at Bulma. I mean at Tailwind, but I'm really gonna look at this Nord Health design. This is cool. Check this out if I didn't link it earlier. Yeah, it is quite, and I'm not really a designer. I just want something that looks decent, and we can move on. And if we get designer resources, then we might look at, you know, something with Figma support. This has Figma support and dark and light themes out of the box, so it's like really, you know, and at some point I might have to just bite the bullet. Like it, and that was another thing with Tailwind, is I would pretty much have to start working with NPM, you know, in order to do, like, what do you call it, tree shaking, essentially the styles that were unused. Otherwise I would install Tailwind from CDN and have like the whole thing, and I think it's bigger than Bootstrap at that point. I don't know, I've never heard of that. What's Jasmine? Interesting. Intended as a drop-in app to jazz up your Django admin site with plenty of things you can customize, including a built-in UI container. Yeah, it would be really cool to get more mileage out of the Django admin, in particular to use it for non-tech users, like non-administrative users. And that's why on another project, we use Wagtail CMS. It is really good. Like the design, the user experience, the project is maintained very actively. The community is really good. And it's basically WordPress for Django. It's used by some really prominent organizations. It's built on modern, so to speak, content management paradigm, this block-based, which essentially is the way HTML is blocks of content, like types, dividers and paragraphs, example, or UL, so it's natural that we have emerged this block-based CMS paradigm as well. It's kind of reflecting the medium as the message in a way. Wagtail doesn't cost. Nope, it's fully open source. There's no premium or freemium. There is a consultancy called the Torchbox that are the main developer. Look at this nice dark and light toggle. They are the main developers, and if you want their services, then yeah, that would cost. But there's no gimmick. Wagtail is fully free. You can do the whole thing. There's no premium modules or plugins. And even Torchbox is like super active with community support as well, like on Stack Overflow or GitHub, like super forthcoming, and never have they asked for us to pay any subscriber fee for premium support, anything like that. We've been using them for 5 years on another open source project. Yeah, it is really good, and it's only getting better, and especially like after in recent releases, they have a big focus on accessibility and usability, documentation, so they're like really a full-fledged project. When we were originally starting this other project where I'm using Wagtail CMS, we were looking for other Django CMSs, and we did look at the Django CMS and also Mezzanine, but the Wagtail just really stood out at that time 5 years ago, and it has only gotten better. Yeah, and they really are focused on usability. And we migrated over from Drupal, and there's a lot of custom So I think with things like Wagtail, well, it's so easy to customize, and admin LTE. Yeah, that was another project we used with that Meteor one. All right, we're getting far along. So now that our view logic is more complicated, our test suite is going to be more complicated. I'll refresh my water and clear my mind for a minute. I'll come back, commit this, and I'm going to write a test suite for this view. We'll test both regular user and super user scenarios where the users are a member of multiple homes and at least one home with a home group. Hydrate rewards. How do you do that? I can set that up. I'm trying to add little improvements to this stream for sure. Like the layout and stuff like that has changed over the last couple of weeks. What's the thing? Like if I hydration, Twitch hydration, no. Oh, okay. And if somebody gives me channel points, then I've got to drink. So that could be dangerous. You can get water toxicity pretty fast. But all right. So then let me take a look. Twitch channel points. So you see them somewhere. I call them programmer points. All right. Yeah, as long as I can control the usage. A little bit on the water. I do try to stay hydrated lately. But I'm going to be right back. I'll commit this when I come back. I'm going to hydrate. But now I think I'm balanced. Channel point guide for creators. I'll have to look at the hydration points. For some reason my Firefox isn't opening up. So I don't know if I just added this whole thing or just refactored it. No, I moved it to a helper and then the regroup helper. We'll just call it that. So again, if you're just tuning in and you want to see the changes made during this live stream, here's the pull request. Definitely would use channel points for stretch break, QA, etc. All right. I'll have to see what other streamers are doing with their channel points. But let me make note of this somewhere. I don't know. All right, got those. Let's just say, what are some, I gotta assume that the model knows more than me. Here are some creative ideas for rewards. Choose the next game. All right, Q&A time, gameplay challenges, voice modulation, tutorial or tip session, social media shout outs, channel VIP status. Dang. Fitness challenge. Oh yeah, I could do that actually. Pet cameo. Cosplay, music time. I gotta watch the copyright strikes. And provides the story. Personalized thank you note. Highlight reel. Participation. Wow, these are some interesting ones. What do you think are your favorites there? I'll put this on my desktop. Okay, you can tailor the questions for yourself and your theme. Since we're not playing games as the primary activity, I know there's many game streamers out there, but there might be something more specific for live coding. Coding tutorial, live coding projects, code reviews, pair programming. Hey, that's kind of cool. I've been thinking about that because you can invite people on to the stream. Somehow you do like co-streaming. That'd be tight. And I've already done an on-stream code review, as well as I opened a couple of pull requests to a viewer project. Wow, there's a lot of these. I'll just put all these in a scratch pad and think more about this. This is a new world. I didn't even realize that this is possible. Good suggestion. Thank you very much. Yeah. That's true. A lot of these are pretty specific. Probably most of them I'll throw away, but it's just like good to get the ideas flowing and to learn how people are improving your stream and the engagement. Basically, so it's beneficial for people who are hanging out and people are having fun and stuff. That's the main goal here. That's why I'm streaming. Otherwise, I can just sit and program and work on these open source projects. Sometimes I just do that when I don't feel motivated or something like that. I'll just do the coding, but I thought it's more fun oftentimes to hang out. This is nice. And little improvements like this, adding the background music, a little bit of aesthetic changes. I'm open to a lot of suggestions like that. Well, now let's have some fun writing unit tests. Okay, so I think actually if I run my tests, the fact that there's no failures is a bad sign because I've made a big change. No, that's a bad sign. Because even as the super user, while I have access to all of these homes, the structure changed subtly. If we look at the template, so of the context, in other words, I thought I had a pull request for this. Okay, I just haven't linked it to the issue. Sorry, this is the actual pull request, 62. But if we look at my context, just by virtue of checking out the template, we can see that I'm iterating over a dictionary now, kind of bespoke keys, whereas previously I was iterating over entities and query set. But irregardless, I need to write a unit test. This part of the project is not covered. So one thing I like to do is get some help with those from ChatGPT. And essentially, if I paste in my models, so here I'll need the user model, the home model. It's probably enough context to prompt it, maybe the home group model as well, to prompt it to help me write a whole test suite. This is cool. Let's see how far we can get. Let me close down some stuff real quick. Twitch hydrate challenge. That's good. Good idea. I need to write a comprehensive test suite for the following view. But I'm going to give it a little bit more context here. Given the following models, because now our context window is like 8,000, 8K. So that means I can pretty much paste this whole application in there. Not quite, but getting there. So here's the home model. So we'll need the home group and the home, but the home is massive. So I will just, because I have a lot of helper functions, mainly for the analytics. This is an analytics heavy application. So if you're interested in data visualization, this is the place to be. And I'd appreciate any advice. And right now I'm sort of shoehorning an analytical application onto a relational database. And it's working out, but eventually I'm going to have a reckoning probably. I don't think we were using the members, so I don't really need that. It's essentially if I just give it just enough. The home group and the account model, because there's a little bit, this homes helper is the main thing. And then I don't need the full name or really the stir. That's just kind of wasting my context. And the verbose name, probably not super important. It should know about, I believe it knows about the abstract user. So same thing, I'm just going to pare down a little bit and just tell it about the need and not make any specific requests here. Just say, here's what I'm trying to achieve. Usually I'll get back, at least step by step, how to write this test suite, as well as the common or the specific test scenarios I should be targeting. The pair programming on the stream, I think that's one of the things I'll use the channel points for. That would be fun. Okay, so this is good. It's already breaking it down. To write a comprehensive test suite for your home group list view and to regroup homes by group. Yeah, probably should test those separately. You need to cover various scenarios and edge cases. Your test should verify that the view correctly handles different types of users, like super users and regular users, and that the homes are properly grouped by their home group. And to do this, we have, I should have mentioned, we have a bunch of factory methods that'll be useful here. So create the test models. First, you need to define test instances of user, home, and home group models. Make sure to create homes with and without home groups and assign them to different users and groups. Yep. Test the regular user and a super user. Include homes without groups and empty groups. Okay, now it's getting into the code. This is really good. So it actually got me probably 40% of the way there. It's a crucial 40% because it's helping me think holistically about this, and it's giving me a skeleton of a test suite. So what I can do now is iteratively improve this. So if I mention, for example, we have factory for home, and I'll create a home group factory, and I'll switch to the syntax because that way, if I have the model explicitly in here, this will give Copilot a little bit of information. So I'll make a suggestion here. So this is all predicated on having a really good test setup. So we'll start here, then writing the test cases will get a lot easier. So we got a user and a super user, home, a couple of home groups. We really only need, we'll want to have an empty home group and a home group with home or something like that. All right, so we got a really good start. So let's move over to the test code. And I do have some tests, so I'm not like totally skimping on the tests. Mainly the model and some residence with activities, but I haven't tested the view until now. So we've got the test case. Let's get our imports up there. Just do these one at a time. Django contrib. Django test comes after that. I'm not sure why my imports didn't get sorted. And then factories. And that is true. They're in the same. Here they are, in fact. Home group factory. And then we're going to grab the user model. Yep. And Copilot also knew that. So on the same page. I sometimes am curious if Copilot and GPT-4 somehow know about each other. They're the same entity. Okay, so we've got a user and a super user. And what I want to do is set up I'll be explicit about my naming. So the idea here is just going to have one without a home. I really don't need necessarily, to my knowledge, I don't think I need a second one. Just a home group with home and a home group without home. I'm trying to think through these test cases a bit more. Likewise, we have a home with group and a home without group formats. But we need a home with or without group I'll call it user home with group. Or, yeah, that's true. Have you tried any plugins like these VS Code ones? I'm also a bit sketchy about the plugin authors. I don't know how much you can trust. I don't know. I'm not saying people have inherently bad intentions, but some people do. And I just don't know any of these people. And you can audit the code, of course. The same thing, I'm still a bit skeptical about, Docker containers too. And we use those like pervasively. And there's, we never, I don't think we audit them as much as we should or could. They run secrets and all sorts of things. But yeah, I have not tried any of these extensions. I know that Copilot is powered by GPT, but I suspect it's sort of in between GPT 3.5 and 4. It's not quite there, what I get out of the chat interface. So we need a home with group. Let's just call it home without user. And this is interesting. This won't work. You can't just assign the user here. So all we need is another factory. And then we're going to write the first test case just to assert that this data exists, that it is correct. That's what I've kind of been doing. I don't know how common that is in other projects, but I assert my test data is how I'm expecting it to be. I suppose since I have like an interactive debugger, I don't really need to do that. Maybe it's just a habit I've formed. So now we need to run over to the, I'm getting tired. Yeah, not the third-party ones. So how do we associate users with homes? We'll need to define probably a factory for this. I don't know. But the cool thing is with this home user relation factory, it can use subfactories or we can specify it. So that's the good thing about factories. So now that we've got this, we will close something down, maximize this for the time being so I can just see what I'm doing. I guess I could use a wider display or something. It's pretty wide though. It is pretty wide. Now, we'll use our new factory model. Home user relationship to associate user with home. Let's see what it does. Home with group, self-user. Home without user, self-user. Didn't do it. Not correct. Home without group, yes. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, this is essentially we want to have a test that'll more or less, let me check my mock data a little bit. All right. Right. So what we need to do is actually get the model now. Home group and home group relation. Yeah, so getting close. Get my imports there. So those are the baseline tests. The other way of looking at it would be and the super user is not part of any homes, but they will be able to see homes. Then we can assert that the homes are in, but I think we're pretty good. All right, so now let's feed this back to ChatGPT so it knows what's going on. So just giving it the current scoop. So when it's gonna help me write the remaining tests, it's gonna know about the context data, my naming conventions that I introduced, and maybe just work through the test mock data. So what I'll do is ask it to write a revised test mock data. To make sure our test mock data, mock data is set up correctly for subsequent tests. So it's checking accounts, correctly associated homes with our home groups. Home group with no homes is actually has no homes associated with it. Interesting. Let's see. Good, it ran. Wow. Now, I'm thinking we can break this down into basically two remaining test functions. One for the super user case and one for the user case. But let's see what ChatGPT thinks about that. I'll tell it what I'm considering. We should also perhaps create a user with no homes. I mean, nothing will display. We're sort of testing that implicitly. Or a user with homes without home groups. Yeah, it's a bit complicated. There's a lot of edge cases here. Let's just ask. Make sure our test data is sufficient. For example, having the user that has not been associated with any homes. So yeah, I'll just read this aloud a little bit if it helps. So we're going to test the context data for regular users, the context data for super users, make sure that that's shaped correctly. We've got a function that groups the homes together, so we want to make sure that that function is behaving expected. It might be good to just write an isolated test case for that. If I give it a list of, or it's a dictionary with home key values. We'll think about that one. Template rendering, make sure that the correct template is used, and if it renders without errors, optionally check if key elements are present in the rendered template. Something like beautiful soup. Or there's also just some built-in Django template primitives that allow you to check a request contains a string or something like that. Access control. Check that unauthorized users are handled correctly, e.g. redirected or shown an error. We don't have access control on this view. Maybe, to my knowledge, we don't. Might have added that. It might redirect to the login page. That's a good point, though. Empty states. So yeah, let's start with the first one. Yeah, now I find that if I work in chunks, instead of asking it to write the whole thing for a test suite that has this many potential tests, I think we'll get a better result. Particularly because these tests contain dozens of lines in some cases. So the first, it's going to log in as the user. So it's using the test client. Then it's going to make a request to that view. Okay, so we'll have to get the reverse name. Just for shared reference, I'm going to say I'll add that in the setup. That's a good thing to add to the setup. Self.url, just add that first. So, and import reverse, and the name of the view is the home list view. That looks good. Oh, wow. And then it rewrote the test for me. Test context data for regular user. All right, now we can just add this one in there. We'll run the test and just see what happens just out of the box. All right. This is a pasting error. And the problem also, did we set the password? So this is what happens when you copy and paste stuff. Yeah. You don't really know what's going on. You have to read it carefully, but and that needs to be self. I still think, there's a lot of room for the person involved, in the loop here with the AI to help, pair program essentially. It's able to do the bulk of the programming, but the concept work and making sure things work as you're expecting it still takes a human in the loop so far, in my experience. What about you? Do you think these Gen AI tools are going to be replacing programmers wholesale in the next 5 to 10 years, or is there going to be a symbiotic thing, or perhaps putting us into a new realm or modality, but still needing technology skills and mindset? I'm really getting tired, so I don't want to really read through the whole thing, but comprehensive test case for the context data for super user. Creating a comprehensive test case for checking the context data in the home group list view for super users involves verifying that the super user gets appropriate context data, which is basically everything. This usually means checking that super user can see all homes, irrespective of their group association or user association. Depending on your application's logic, here's how you can structure your test. This is going to be a bit more complicated, but there's a bit of a typo there. Maybe. This should be group name, I think. Let's try it out. And I can't just copy the whole thing here. I really should be considering committing these soon, because it's going to be a bit hard if I copy and paste everything in and need to roll back a little bit. We'll run it, but I suspect there is a typo. If I recall in my view, home groups with homes. Home group with homes should be home group name equals group name. So it's asserting that so for home group and home groups, it's asserting that it's in the home groups with homes. It's also asserting that all, that's a confusing one. Wow. Yeah, maybe I should just let it alone. Okay, because we're iterating over home groups. Got it. The AI knows the code better. False is not true. All right, 469. I don't even know what this is saying. What if I ask? Let's at least check this one. So it looks like this test passes. False is not true. All right, we'll have to step back through these. This is complicated, and I'm not sure that I gave enough context for GPT to really figure this one out. Homes without group, homes with group. All right then. And we can use debugging here. Test debugging. So I have actually a debugger profile set up for just this purpose. Yeah, I guess the unit tests aren't so exciting. Lost all the viewers. Let me edit this. But I want to get this done. This is really good progress. And we're testing homes test home group list view test. So now if I run my debugger, it should only run that one test suite. All right, so I know this is going to return all the home groups. We got home group, that any group name equals home group name for group. Okay, so the premise is wrong here. We can't assert that for every home group that it has homes, because I'm not sure we set that condition up, and in fact we probably shouldn't test for that, but more what we could iterate over is this. All right, so we've got the group name, home ID, or home for. If I look at the home group with homes, we've got only group 1, home group 1. Yeah, all right, name is group 1. So that this home group does exist inside of the list, yep, by the key group name. All right, so we'll play that, but home group 3 does not contain a home, right? So it would not be in that group. That's cool. So since I already have references here, I can make the assertion without the any statement, or at least without iterating over all home groups. Assert true. Let me just run it here. It's a bit faster now. So that was it. That did cause it to pass. Okay. Yeah. So this group without home should not be in the home group with homes. Here we go. Now the next challenge is actually more difficult. That the homes in the context are correctly associated with the home group. All home and group. Now this no longer exists. Oh, it does. Let's see if I just delete this and ask for some help from Copilot. And the inverse. Yeah. So we have the case now where the home without the group is there. I wonder if this can be made more readable. Group with home. Oh, that's a little bit better. It's still pretty hard to grok. It's working. So now I'm going to just sort of pollute the context window with the result of our tests to make sure that ChatGPT has been updated with all the work so far. Since some of the things had to be rewritten a bit. And I think there might be one more test case. It gave us the template one for free, so that was good. Without being prompted. So I'll just go ahead and add that. This is pretty comprehensive. Let's see if this runs. I don't think I ran it. Alright, I'm going to commit this as initial test suite. The reason being, I believe adding this more comprehensive setup is going to throw a wrench in the works a bit, while still opening the door for testing additional scenarios that would be potentially edge cases that crop up. So we'll need to revise our test mock data as well. And let me just see if this runs, or passes at least. It does. The new data didn't alter that. On 500. Surprised that one didn't break earlier though. Well, let me just take this one step at a time. If I comment this out, that's what I was thinking, it would cause some problems in the remaining tests. That's all right. Also, the indentation got screwed up. Dang it. Yeah, so now both of these have failed, which is cool. All right, I'll just ask for a revised update test case. It's just, I think, just kind of changing that, but there could be a few more assertions we need to make. just run that test in isolation. Well, not isolation, but all right. There may be some duplication in these, but well, essentially they're all. It should show all homes in all groups. Except the empty room. Hey Rebel, thanks for that subscribe. Appreciate it. Very cool. I probably need to switch between the emoji bomb and the other little star thing. Very cool. Thank you. Hey, how are you doing? Making some progress here. Okay, what did I do wrong? 544. Didn't. With the help of ChatGPT, like crazy. This is a massive test suite. Man, that is so remarkable. It can just juggle so much context. I'm doing good. I'm pretty tired. You got 2 minutes to spare. All right. Nice to have a break. Are you working on something, or what are you up to today? This is my 6th hour. Wow, this has been a 6-hour live stream. I didn't realize that. And I had a full day at work as well. Crazy. But I got really motivated by this project. Legal stuff. Oh man, it's always a bummer. And I hope you have some assistance with that. I think we're good though. I think we've got pretty much the main massive tests running, and I have confidence now that more or less our view is functioning, which we didn't even have tests for this view previously. Yeah, it's been a pretty good day. A long one, and it's a cold one too. We're at minus 20, minus like 21, I think it got down to today. Celsius. Man, what is that in Fahrenheit? -5, -6. Doesn't sound so bad. That's cold, yeah. Painfully cold. My face turns numb. I basically had to force myself to go for a walk even to get out of the house, and my face was like red, beet red when I returned. But yeah, walking across town is a painful endeavor. But yeah, it's important to still be active. I'll probably go for one more walk this evening just because, and then I'll go to bed. Yeah, true that. And I learned my first year here in Finland, it's well, bearskin is a good one, and I think because it's sort of like insulating layer. I thought I could just get a really big coat and I would be fine, but it turned out you need layers. You got to have a few, like a long underwear layer, going all the way down, and then like a sweater, and then my winter coat, and sometimes I even need like 2 sweaters. But just having these like layers with insulated, it works much better than just if I had a big coat that was all sealed up, and a scarf so your heat doesn't. That's my basic survival tips. Yeah, that's right. I have to keep it trapped there. Yeah, a friend told me that my first year here, that was like one of the key survival tips for the winter. Although the winters have been really mild until this winter has been like one of the coldest ones in the 10 years that I've been here. The other one is the summer, because the sun doesn't set. So there's a whole different survival strategy there to like get your sleep in. Darkening curtains. Oh, wow, I think we powered through it. I'm getting like super tired, but I think our tests should reflect what I see as the admin user. And if I create a dummy user or a fake user, that only gets assigned to one house. And then for example, add them to one home. And I can't remember if home 0 was in a group or not. It's not in a group. Home 1 is, so then I'll add them to home 1 as well. And I'll go incognito, and I'll go to the home screen, and I think this is actually something I need to test. Oof. Yeah. So that's a bug. Dang it. Thought I could get ready to go to bed, but no, I need to check if the user is logged in. Just return the context there. Return early. Early return. Nice. Just thinking if I need a test case for that. Then if I go to homes, home 0 and home 1, yeah, it works as expected. Super cool, yeah. All right, well, I better call it good, but I'll try to stream a bit earlier tomorrow, probably not this late. But yeah, tomorrow and Saturday, I'll have some time for streaming and continuing this Jerry Life project. So it's been cool. Glad you stopped in, Rebel. I appreciate it, and glad we got to chat for a little bit. Yeah, I hope we get to hang out another time soon. And I'm gonna work on some kind of stream points, and if you got some ideas on how the participants could use their stream points, such as like doing pair programming or having me review a pull request of theirs or something like that, I'm open to some ideas, even just like hydration, exercise points, stuff like that. It was suggested today that I look into how people can use these stream points. I hadn't even really thought of it, but yeah, to make it more engaging and rewarding for the viewer. All right, well, have a good day, and I hope you're doing well, and see you around.